Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Inside the Birds pregame live here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook on Delaware Ave in Philly. It's where Philly loves a winner. I'm Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds alongside my Inside the Birds co-host Adam Kaplan. We got the usual suspects with us today. We got Greg Cosell, and who has the unfortunate job today of having to sit next to that man right there with the
unfortunate for me.
The proud, yeah, unfortunate
maybe
for
it's
you.
unfortunate for
well,
you.
Maybe it looks maybe it just makes you look better. I don't know. Yes, it is unfortunate
most
for me.
things make me look better. That's okay.
It is unfortunate for me. The Penn State fan in me has to acknowledge former Michigan wide receiver and former Eagles wide receiver Jason Avant, a very proud UM alumni today.
I'm happy today.
Yeah?
I'm so happy today.
You hailing to the
many
Victor's
text
Valiant?
chains, so many. Just up late last night. Such a great night.
What a great
when you
night.
beat that school down south, it's like pandemonium. Coach gets extended for the next 10 years. That's it.
So what's on the helmet? What's on the side of the helmet, by the way?
Oh, these are stickers of my accomplishments. Like all Big Ten, second team All Big Ten, wins, and then also like academic All-American stuff like that.
Nice.
Whatever.
Ah.
We're going to get you a little ITB pregame sticker because
There we
that's
go.
a heck of an accomplishment for you to be here with us today. Jason, congratulations to you. Seriously, finish it off now, all right? Don't lose in the Big Ten championship game to Iowa
The
now.
maize and blue.
It'll be a
Finish it
tough
off.
game. Iowa's tough team.
All right. Well, we are here at Jack's Bar and Grill as the Eagles get ready for just their second NFC East game this year. It feels like it's been quite a while since their first one, which was Week 3, Dallas. This will be the first game of their two-game series against the New York Giants, and we will get into that series. It's always a respectable, fun series for the fans and for the players. The Eagles are 5-6. They are hot. They're coming off that 40-29 thumping of the Saints last week. They've won 3 out of the last 4 games. The Giants, not so much. They are coming off of a 30-10 loss to the Tampa Bay Bucks after coming out of their bye. They've lost 2 or 3. They are 3-7 after making lots of changes last offseason to try to capitalize on their late year surge last year. Has not helped out. They're making more changes that we will talk about as we get in. Are the Eagles a playoff team? We'll talk about that a little bit today. They certainly are within reach for a wild card, and a win today would really help their push. Come on down to Rivers Casino. There's a lot of time left before the game. There's a lot of space in the sports book for you to get comfortable with, place your wagers, watch the games, watch this show here on their big screen TV. Enjoy the food, the drink specials, the leather recliners, everything. It is football watching heaven. And as a special treat, Adam and I, after this show, are going to head on over to the sports book for our ITB watch party. It's our first one. We'll do it a couple of times for the rest of the year. So you can come on down, listen to us, give a little bit of analysis. We've got some prizes that we're going to give away. So plenty of time to head down here to Rivers Casino and take part in all the festivities. If you're watching at home, please take a second to share or give us a like, give us a share. If you leave a comment on YouTube, we will try to, or a question, we'll try to answer it. In fact, if you leave us the score predictions, people have been doing this recently. Cool. We will try to read your score predictions at the end of the show and kind of get a consensus on where we think people are leaning in this game. And let's start. Let's start with the big news. The big news has been for quite a while, week on week, is that the Eagles are fairly healthy, although they do have some injuries we'll talk about, but their opponent is not. The Giants are more injured than the Eagles, and this kind of follows a trend that the Eagles have been, a favorable trend for the Eagles lately, where they're facing teams that just don't have some of their best players, Adam.
Yeah, it's interesting. So earlier in the season, they had the same situation happen, and they were not taking advantage of the matchups. Now they are, and obviously we know they have a game plan that they have every week to run the football. But this week, the Giants, once again, it's not that they just have a new coordinator change on offense. They've got a lot of injuries. At wide receiver, where they started off, Jeff, this season extremely deep, probably one of the deeper teams at 5 or 6 deep.
Yeah.
Sterling Shepard out once again. He's missed 5 games this season. Now he has a quadriceps injury, which has been lingering. You know, they do like to run 2 tight end sets. Now Cade Smith is out as one of their backup tight ends. Kadarius Toney is not expected to play with a quadriceps contusion. He's been terrific when healthy, but he hasn't been healthy enough. Kyle Rudolph is not expected to play with his ankle sprain. He got hurt in the last game. Saquon Barkley should play with his ankle injury. John Ross, who's kind of revived his career, and I don't know what it is with these quadriceps injuries. They have 4 players with quadriceps injuries. John Ross has a quadriceps injury. They're going to get Lorenzo Carter back from his ankle injury. Dory Jackson, he'll play. He also has a quadriceps injury. But if you look at the injured reserve players, Dante Pettis, who kind of revived his career, played a lot earlier this season. He's done for the season. He had shoulder surgery. Shane Lemieux, who started week 1 at guard, he's on injured reserve with a knee problem. Matt Skura is filling in for him. Nick Gates, who started the season at center, he's down for the season with a broken leg. Billy Price, who they traded for Bengals first-round pick, starting there. Look at their defense, okay? We talked about their offense. Look at their defense. Blake Martinez, a tackling machine, lost for the season due to a torn ACL. Reggie Ragland, he's filling in for him. Jabril Peppers, he tore his ACL. Logan Ryan is not active this game, missing 2 games now due to he's on the COVID list. Julian Love and Xavier McKinney. It's amazing how deep their depth was at safety. They're last man standing. They're now starting at safety. So there you go. Tons of changes on offense and defense for the Giants, but can the Eagles take advantage of it?
All right, we thank everybody for watching. That's been the Inside the Birds pregame live show.
With injuries. Well, I'm out of breath.
4 quad contusions, 3 shoulder sprains, 2 broken ankles,
ACLs.
and a partridge in a pear tree for the New York Giants. For the Eagles, it's a lot simpler. They've got injuries, but you can only go through them in about 30 seconds. But they're significant. First of all, Jordan Howard is going to be out today with the knee injury. We don't know how long he'll be out,
It's a
but
sprained
certainly
knee.
sprained knee.
Right, and Nick Sirianni did say he's got a chance to play next week, which would lead credence to the belief it's a grade 1 MCL sprain. But with Howard out this week, now Kenny Gainwell theoretically would be active.
Right.
And obviously Miles Sanders and Boston Scott. And Boston Scott, the Giant killer.
The Giant Slayer.
He's been amazing. Yeah, he's been amazing against
That is right. So we'll see how this running game functions without a major piece of the running game over the last 4 weeks, and really their most and only downhill style running back. Also out today, he just had knee surgery, a minor type of surgery, is Davion Taylor. Now the word is from Nick Sirianni that he might be able to be back later in the season, but he is going to be at least out for the next 3 games as he's on IR. And this is an interesting injury because he's been playing better, but Alex Singleton most likely to take those reps.
He'll take it short.
I'm not sure that there's a huge drop-off from one to the other, Greg, unless you think that there is, or Jason. I feel like they're different types of guys, but as far as overall level, it doesn't, to me, change it.
To me, it does a little bit because
In what
I
way?
think
Yeah.
I think that the defense and its adaptability of late has to do with Davion's growth. Him and T.J. Edwards, they've played really well together. So when you break up that tandem, I believe that the defense will give vanilla like they did toward the end of the game, and you wonder, okay, is that because Davion was out and they couldn't do everything that they were normally doing? So with the week of practice, could it be better? Yes. T.J. Edwards is definitely playing well, but Davion next to him gives them a little bit more flexibility than Alex Singleton, just to me.
I felt that the conservative offense might have been more Darius Slay leaving the field, but there's something to be said. You're right. This is a starting player who walked off the field, and to your point, I thought T.J. Edwards was really more, and I'm not trying to take anything away from Davion Taylor. I'm just saying I thought that was the switch that started to make a difference on how they were playing versus the run. Now, the chemistry you're talking about is the truth. I mean, they've played together, and now it's got to be T.J. Edwards and Alex Singleton.
Yeah.
Greg, do you think that that's a big drop-off, or?
It's probably not a big drop-off as we speak today. I think the Eagles were trying to find out if Taylor was going to be far more than Singleton.
Right.
And I think he was trending in that direction. So it's just a shame for him that he's not going to get the reps now going through at least 3 games and maybe the whole season. Who knows?
Sure.
But no, I think that ultimately if Davion Taylor could reach his potential, I hate that word, but reach what they think he could be based on his athletic traits, he would be more than Alex Singleton.
Sure, his athletic traits are what makes him
Right.
on this team and getting that opportunity.
Just from a mental standpoint, I'm told that way better functioning and understanding what he's being asked to do, because we have to remember he's not played a lot of football in his life, and he took a big jump earlier this season. Now, he's had 2 separate knee injuries, and remember, Jeff, he had a calf, and what was the other injury in training?
Well, it started off as a hip, and then he came back and then injured his calf, which put him out much longer.
And now he had a knee surgery. I mean, this is just
On a fluky play, too.
Okay, what happened? What play was that? Do you know?
Well, I remember seeing it, and the play was essentially over, and somebody kind of hit, rolled up on him a bit. You remember that?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
It was at the end. The play had just ended.
I just remember him being out of the game. I was like,
The play had just ended, and he got hit in a weird way. It was just one of those things.
The roll-up injuries have
Yeah.
to be some of the most frustrating in football. When the play's over and someone just kind of, you're not involved, and
Right.
someone just, always feel the lineman who
Yeah.
gets somebody pushed into him at the end of a play, and then he buckles
I'm amazed,
at the end.
to be honest with you, that more offensive linemen don't
They
get
get in
hurt.
the side, right?
I think they just have like a sense of when a guy's close to him and they buckle their knee a little bit better than most. Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
why Trey Thomas last year used to talk about all these offensive linemen that they should all wear knee braces.
Wear the damn
Yeah.
brace.
Wear the
wear the
braces.
damn- yeah.
Yeah. Keep your
Absolutely.
feet moving so
Exactly.
you can be able to
Yeah.
keep your feet moving.
Big thing that Adam mentioned, I want to reemphasize for the Giants, that Lorenzo Carter, their outside linebacker, will play, and so will Adoree Jackson. He had the quad injury, but he is not on the injury designation list now. So those guys will play for the Giants. And from a safety standpoint, with Peppers out and with Logan Ryan on the COVID-19 list also, Julian Love and Xavier McKinney have their roles kind of amplified in that Giants defense. How would you say those two have played, Greg? Love and McKinney in
I think
particular?
McKinney's a good player.
Yeah.
I
Second
really,
round pick,
I
right,
really
from
like
Alabama?
McKinney. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he's a very versatile player. I think he can play on the back end. He can play in the box. He can play nickel if you want him to. He won't now because they're short at safety.
Right.
Love's an interesting player too because he was a corner at Notre Dame and he got moved to safety in the NFL.
Right.
So he also has coverage skills. So they're actually pretty good players.
McKinney was actually playing somewhat on the defense even before those guys were hurt.
Without
correct?
question,
They were
yes.
putting him on the
Yes.
on the field.
Yeah.
All right, Eagles. From a transaction standpoint, as you know, they reclaimed McCain off waivers from the Broncos earlier in the week. They also protected and then elevated safety Jared Maiden from the practice squad. So Jared Maiden will be making his maiden voyage on the 50
It's weird.
in the game roster today.
A couple things, by the way. Elijah Riley.
You're just going to
started-
skip over my pun like
No,
that.
I'm going to
huh?
get right to
All
it.
right.
Elijah Riley, by the way, started for the Jets last week.
Did he?
Yeah. Who knows? But here's the deal, though. When you look at the Eagles, they have enough safeties on the roster. So you would think theoretically that it's for special teams.
Right.
And also, you don't elevate a player, not play them, because there's no one on the injury report at safety.
So Sean Bradley is their major special teamer.
Yep,
he's
he's
a
got an
little bit
injury.
banged up. I think he's going to play.
There you go.
Alex Singleton may have been seeing more time in special teams since his kind of specialized role. So I would have a feeling that
that's what I think. Oh, by the way, Darius Slay cleared concussion protocol after Friday's practice, so he's going to be in the lineup today because, as we were saying on our show Friday morning, you don't want to see life without Darius Slay at corner.
that's right.
And
do not want to see
I'm not
it.
trying to be funny, but that's the case. Zach McPherson is not ready to be a starting corner.
No.
And this is the one area where it worries me if they have an injury at outside corner, whether it's Nelson
And
or
McPherson is the next man up.
right, and they don't have anyone. I mean, you don't want to have Maddox on the outside.
No.
We know last year it just didn't work out. So good for the Eagles that Slay is cleared and he'll be ready to go.
All right, we are ready to go and ready to break this game down. We want to first tell you about our friends at Deal Dash. Now, you've already seen Jason Avant. He's got his eyes on Michigan winning a championship, all right? Michigan has a chance to win a Big Ten championship, and then we'll see if they get into the Final Four and can win a national championship. He's long retired from the field. We're all long retired from the field, but we're all winning because we use Deal Dash, all right? Deal Dash is the longest running penny auction website and app around. Does that sound too good to be true? Well, listen to this. We've seen a car sell for $900, a brand new TV for less than $2. You might even be able to get a Michigan helmet on Deal Dash right now, authentic Michigan helmet for less than $5. No, I'm just kidding. No.
That's when they lose, you can.
That's right. So don't be a loser. Stop paying full retail price for things you want and get on Deal Dash. Go to DealDash.com or download the Deal Dash app. And when you register, enter the promo code ITB for a special offer for some bonus free bids. Thanks to our friends at DealDash.com. All right, let's talk about the biggest deal going on in Philadelphia right now, and that's the Eagles and their run game. It has been their calling card for the last 4 weeks. It has helped them turn around their season. Now, we used to do a segment, Jay, you weren't here because Trey Thomas used to sit in that seat. We used to do a segment every week called Trench Talk, where Trey would gloat about great offensive line play from other teams, and, you know, the Eagles were struggling at this time last year, so it wasn't a very fun segment.
A lot of injuries, right?
Yeah, they had a ton of injuries, yeah. So he would get the grease board out sometimes and start talking about black over and 5-0 and all this stuff. It was not fun last year because the Eagles were obviously so injured on the offensive line. This year it's a totally different result. So I wanted to open up the show today, not talking about Miles Sanders, not talking about Jalen Hurts, not talking about Nick Sirianni, but giving credit to the 5 guys up front because they're doing an excellent job. Greg, a lot of what the Eagles are doing especially last week, we'll talk about from a schematic standpoint.
Well, that helps the guys up front.
Totally help. I'm going to bring that up.
Right.
We know scheme is important, but at the same time, you got to have the players to execute the scheme.
No, and they're playing extremely well. But the scheme is part of why it works.
Which guys is the scheme really helping accentuate the most, you think? When you watch the tape, who's jumping out at you?
I think Landon Dickerson is really being helped by the fact that they're a running football team, and that there's a lot of inside runs where he can fire off the football. I think when they do go outside, you see Kelce, who looks like he's 25 years old now on some of these runs. I mean, the Sanders 25-yard run last week where he pulled and I think he hit Pete Warner first, who wasn't his guy, but he just happened to be sort of there. And he hit him and then went to get his guy.
That's looking for work right there.
Yeah, he was looking for work.
Yeah, he's known for it.
Right, right. I think that those two guys, to me, really stand out. I think Mailata stands out as well because he's becoming more powerful as a run blocker. He's a big man. And there's a lot, because of the zone read element, he's not doing base blocks on defensive ends a lot of the time. So what happens is he's a down blocker.
Right.
So he can really use his power, generate strength through his hips. He's a big dude. So I think it's, and we can talk more about the scheme. I know you didn't want to get into that just this moment.
Yeah, that's fine.
But the scheme, because when you put Jalen Hurts in the gun, okay, which is what they do now, I would say 95% of the snaps the last 2 weeks, and you have an offset back, you have the zone read dimension on every single play. Okay, the defense has to be aware that there's a zone read element that could be part of this play.
Right.
And obviously when you do a zone read, there's an unblocked defender. And that also gives you numbers in the run game because you're not blocking that defender.
Sure.
That's what you look for. Every coach will talk about, and you know this, will talk about numbers in the run game.
It's math. That's right.
It's math.
And when the quarterback runs, which we'll talk about, that gives you an extra number against the defense. Jason, real quick, because you look at this offensive line, and we whether it's your Q&A show, whether it's Inside the Birds, whether it's this show here, we've been critical at times of how the team is assembled and what the expectations were going into the year with certain personnel. But you look at the offensive line, this is an area that Howie Roseman has said he learned under Andy Reid, and Joe Banner learned under Andy Reid on how to build an offensive front. You've got Jordan Mailata, who's a 7th-round pick. You got Jack Driscoll, who is a backup 4th-round pick, now has been starting. Jason Kelce was a 6th-rounder. It's not like this is the Cowboys line at one point last year where everybody's a first-round pick. I think you'd have to appreciate the development here, the drafting, the development of this offensive line.
You do, and I think you have to give a ton of credit to Howie, but also them retaining Jeff Stoutland.
Yes.
Right, over the years, right? He's going through this is his 3rd coach now. So keeping him has been paramount to a lot of these guys' success. He goes the extra mile in order to drill things into, Driscoll's head, Mailata. Only guy fighting on the table for him. I was there. Only guy fighting on the table for Mailata is Jeff Stoutland, right? Because it was taking a long time for him to develop. But he kept telling them, hey, this guy's going to be there. Give him another year. Give him another few games, those types of things. So you got to give a lot of credit to him. And then drafting a guy like Dickerson and you're running the ball to his strength, like Greg says, only helps this team out. And they're doing it from a lot of different ways. Yes, it's zone read, but they're countering. They're doing some zone schemes, some gap schemes. They're doing a bunch of different things. It's not just a zone read every time. They're letting it ride a lot more. They're taking the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hand and letting the play ride. And when you have Jordan Howard, that's a stable force in this type of running game. It's like being at Alabama again for Landon Dickerson because it's just a straight downhill running game at some points in the game when Jordan Howard's in there.
Adam, we reported, to capitalize on what he was saying, we reported probably after last year's draft that watch out for this Jack Driscoll kid. I know a 4th-round pick, Auburn. A lot of people didn't know much about him, from Connecticut, by the way.
But it's a transfer, right?
Yeah, transferred from, was it UConn to
I
Auburn?
believe so.
I think so, yeah. That Jeff Stoutland really liked this guy too, and that they felt that he had the athleticism to move inside. He just needed to add to it in his rookie year, some of that weight and everything.
The word on that, what you just said, was the ability to anchor, because he just was not big enough or strong enough.
Right.
And this, I'll be honest with you, was the word around the league is, could he be a starting level guard? Probably better off at right tackle by his build. Better than average athleticism. You probably didn't want to play him inside, but you know what? The Eagles front office's trust in Jeff Stoutland is the reason why this is happening. And I want to ask Jason a question.
Yeah.
So you were with the Eagles coaching staff last year. What did you observe when you would watch Stout coach? Because we don't really get to see it very much. We get to see it in training camp, but you being there as a full-time guy, how does he coach his players?
It's different from most other coaches because he gives the players the ability to think for themselves, right? The reason I say that is Jason Kelce will challenge Stoutland, and he's not turned off by it. He's not disrespected.
How would he challenge?
Because there's multiple different ways to pick up a protection, right? Or pick up a blitz.
Yeah.
There's multiple different ways to block a scheme. And Jason Kelce would say, hey, Stoutland, why would we pull the guard in this situation when I'm fast enough and I can pull and we can have an extra man on the edge, different things like that. And Stoutland would take those things, and what it does is it causes the players to think critically. So when they're in game situations, they're not just robots on a board that the coach made them do this and that. No, they're actually thinking through the game. And I can tell you this, Jeff Stoutland loves Driscoll, loves him because he's able, that's like his second favorite
Well, we call him the coach's pet.
The coach's pet. He loves him. He loves him. From this standpoint, Driscoll will always know what to do, and the coach has safety in that. That's the one thing that he doesn't miss assignments, and because he doesn't have the greatest athleticism, he makes it up with the mental aspects of the game. So a coach will always love that.
If there's one positive from last year's 4-win season, it's that Driscoll and Mailata and to an extent Nate Herbig, who has had to play this year, all got a lot of experience. So they came into this year being able to tap into that and have their growth and development and be ready for this year.
On Mailata, I was told that it was probably his best game of the year in terms of grading and film study. He just, technically, he's so much better with his hands because this has been a struggle for him because of the way Trey Thomas told that Stoutland teaches hand usage a little bit lower.
The catch technique,
right, catch technique. And mentally, he didn't always get it, and they would keep drilling him on it. There was a game in the preseason, it might have been the Pittsburgh game, where he made some mistakes, and they showed him, and he got better and better and better, and he's super competitive, I think maybe coming from rugby. It means a lot to him to be a great football player because he doesn't have the same sort of background as NFL players have, playing in high school and Pee Wee leagues and all that. And now you fast forward it into really his only second year of playing football. I'm talking from a full-time basis, and to see his growth. Greg, you watch 32 teams more than anyone we know, and I'm not asking you to rank these things. But when you see his growth, and you see how big and athletic he is, could this guy be an all-pro, like a top 10 player?
Sure. At his position?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's big, he's athletic, I think he's powerful, and I think, just being big doesn't mean you're powerful.
Right.
And I think he's starting to play more powerfully. And I think the system is helping him do that. The scheming is helping him do that because there's a lot of down blocking.
Yeah. Right.
So that's helping him do that. It's interesting you talk about Jeff Stoutland. I certainly don't know anywhere near what Jeff Stoutland knows, but I would imagine, and you may be able to address this as well, I would imagine that Jeff Stoutland's approach is a little counterintuitive to offensive tackles. Because I think when you see a guy coming at you, you want to get your hands up.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, and I know that Jeff Stoutland does not teach that initially.
That's what Trey was telling us.
Yeah, that he doesn't automatically teach that.
Yeah.
And I think that for someone who's never played and has never been taught, I would think that is a longer learning curve because you see a guy coming at you, you don't want your hands down here because you feel like he's just going to get into your chest. And obviously, if he gets into your chest, it doesn't matter how big you are, you're going to get moved.
Yeah.
So I would think that just takes a little more time, and I think we've seen that throughout the year. I think earlier in the year he struggled a bit at times, even as big as he is, with guys getting into him.
It's interesting you bring that up because I remember Howard Mudd is, may he rest in peace, one of the greatest, who is also taught things unconventionally. For example, he was big on, especially for the jump technique where you get on him. But if you get beat and you have the athleticism, and he always looked for the lighter offensive lineman who did have it, he would teach them to do, like a Jason Kelce, for example, a pivot to a junction point, meaning you can almost. He almost would talk about as a basketball post player, kind of pivoting almost 180, where you would turn your back to the actual defender, but you're so quick that helps you recover because it still keeps the defender from the quarterback. And I remember people, saying how unconventional that was, but if you have the right players to make that work, it could be such an advantage for what you do.
And look, as Jason said about blocking schemes, there's many ways to teach, let's say, pass protection. There's not one way to do it.
Right.
I remember Jackie Slater, who I know well, and he worked on the matchup show with me for a year, and he was one of the few that handled Reggie White. Okay, and he used to tell me that the key to handling Reggie White was to get your hands on him first.
Yeah.
Because if you did not get your hands on him, then he controlled the terms of engagement.
Right.
So now Jeff Stoutland would disagree with that. I would assume. I don't want to speak for Jeff Stoutland, but I know he doesn't teach it that way. So there's many ways to teach it, and there's many ways you can be successful.
Sure.
You know, so
there's pros kind of to every way. There's going
Right.
to be a way that you can counteract any technique.
No question.
And it's about the player being able to think for themselves at some point to know what player you need to use this technique on. Like maybe
Right.
a lighter player, I could catch him a little bit more, but a big heavy guy that I may not be able to, and I have to jump him a little bit earlier.
Right.
Little things like that.
There's
The
also
player
different
has to
kinds
do
of
that.
sets.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
most
Vertical
people say
and-
there's 3 kinds of sets. There's the short set, a 45-degree angle set, and a vertical set. And you teach different techniques for each different set.
Right.
You know, a short set, you want to get your hands on someone right away.
Yep.
You're not going to short set with your hands by your side.
Talked
Right.
about short setting
Right.
before.
You know,
Yeah.
so there's short sets, then there's the 45-degree angle, and then there's the vertical set on deeper drops. Those are all different techniques are involved in each of those different sets.
Right. Right. No, offensive line play is
it's-
way more complex than we would think.
You know, the
Man,
first
yeah.
time I ever really got to see that was years and years ago. I was at a training camp, and now I can't remember which one, but it was Jim McNally. You remember him?
Oh, Mouse. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Considered one of the
For
great
Giants.
O-line
Were
coaches.
the Giants or Bengals?
I can't remember which
Okay.
camp
Yeah,
it
no,
was.
he was,
but,
or Buffalo. Buffalo.
but it was a long time ago.
Yeah, sure.
And
The
I was
legend.
fortunate enough, you know, the team let me just go wherever I wanted
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
in training camp, and I was literally standing 5 feet away from him while he was teaching O-line play, and the minutia and the detail, and you know this, is unbelievable. I mean, you know, it's hand placement, and it's not just, oh, put your hand there. It's put it in this exact spot. It's feet movement. It's, hey, we don't want to move it 7 inches. We want to move your foot 3 inches.
amazing.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's the way they teach this stuff.
The funny thing is, you talk about McNally, and you watch some of these other coaches. McNally was small, wasn't he? If I recall,
Very small guy, yeah.
Dante Scarnecchia with
Yeah.
the Patriots is also a small guy.
Howard Mudd
Legend.
wasn't the biggest guy in the world.
Although he
as well.
was, he did play in the NFL, right?
Yeah, he did, he did.
Was he a lineman? Was he a lineman?
Yeah, he
assume
was.
a lineman.
I think he was, yeah. Back in the day when the linemen weren't that big, I guess.
Yeah.
60s. Yeah.
All right, well, look, we know that the offensive line, a big part of what the Eagles have been doing for weeks upon weeks, 3 straight weeks, they were rolling that rushing offense, and then they met the #1 rush defense last week of the Saints, and they merely carried the ball 50 times for 242 rushing yards. Now, even if you were to subtract Jalen Hurts' scrambles out of that, his non-designed runs, or even if you took his design runs out, it was still over 170 rushing yards by the running
Well, you can
backs.
take the scrambles. The design runs are part of their offense.
It is. That's
Now
why I
they
said
are.
you could
Yeah.
leave that in too. It's,
No, but even if you just take all of his runs out,
take all of his runs out.
170 yards is a lot.
170
Yeah.
yards by running backs. As we were just referring to, it's not just like they're lining it up and running too. I mean, we saw downhill runs, we saw option runs, you saw inside zone, outside zone, misdirection, really the whole kitchen sink. And then, of course, as they've added, we saw jet motion too. More recently, I think, is the designed quarterback run that is functioning off of their conventional running game. However you want to label it. I mean, to me, it's become a more sophisticated running game week after week.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's the opposite. I think
When
the
you-
offense is now built on Hurts as a runner, and everything works off
Off
of
of that.
Not they run the ball and Hurts happens to run.
Right, but don't you think they had to establish that first to get to a point where they could run? I don't know if 4 weeks ago they could have said we're going to have an offense where Jalen's going to run this much when we haven't even been establishing the run ourselves. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I disagree with
Okay.
that. But that's okay.
That's fine.
Reasonable people
Reasonable
can
people can disagree.
I'm not sure who's reasonable here. But
Yeah, which one of us is reasonable? But tell me what you're seeing in general.
Well, to me, and they're starting to become way more multiple with their run game concepts, okay? I think this is very similar to what the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson, where he was the foundation as a runner and everything worked off him.
Right.
Okay, even look, obviously every team has base runs where the quarterback is quote unquote not a factor. I mean, when Sanders has a 25-yard run, that's a run. Okay, but I think the whole foundation of what they're doing now starts with Hurts as a runner because it dictates how defenses play. See, that's the thing you have to keep in mind. It dictates how defenses play this stuff. And it starts with Hurts. And I think that, I don't know if they always had this in their back pocket, and they wanted to wait to see and get through other things to see where they go with the season. Because don't forget, the first 4 or 5 games, Hurts was in the gun almost every time. They just never ran the
throwing
ball.
it 35
They were
times a game.
throwing the ball.
Yeah. Right.
So I can't speak to why they were doing that. Maybe in their mind they wanted to find out whether Hurts could be that kind of quarterback who could throw it 35, 38 times a game. The answer seemed to be no, he can't. Then they put him under center for a couple of games, which we all said was the really smart thing to do, and it kind of worked. It kind of worked. But now they've gone to this the last 2 weeks, and it's clearly a case where the foundation is Hurts as a runner, and everything works off
Right,
that.
but real quick, I guess that's where I think we actually are on the same. I was just trying to make the point against the Raiders first, and then the Lions. They were much more under center. So
Yes.
it's, to me, I've seen a linear
Right.
progression from under center based on the running backs to
Right.
now a running game based on the quarterback.
Right, but and the O-line always wants to run the ball. So yes, when they ran it well under center, the O-line, the O-line's playing at a really high level no matter what they're doing. All I'm saying is now the O-line is helped by the scheme.
Totally agree.
And Greg, what I would add is when you watch Lamar Jackson and the Ravens passing game, watch Mark Andrews run free. Because their defense
Goddard could become the same guy.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
They're so focused on stopping Lamar.
Yeah.
And I'm not taking anything from Mark Andrews. He's a nice player. But he gets so wide open because they are so focused on Greg Roman's sophistication of, okay, what exactly are they doing here? They're playing him out of the pistol. Gus Edwards, you brought up earlier. Gus Edwards was an undrafted free agent.
Correct.
But they made a player because of Lamar. So
Right.
Dallas Goedert now should be that guy who takes off.
He will. And they're going to just keep adding layers to the run game as this
How
continues.
so? When you say that, how so?
Well,
What do you mean?
just different motions in the backfield.
Okay.
All these backfield actions,
Yeah.
there'll be different formation looks. They'll just keep adding to this, and it makes it harder to defend.
The Ravens do a good job in the screen game.
Yeah.
And the reason they're able to do it is because they can dictate the coverages all the time. Because
Correct.
you have to add so many people to the line of scrimmage
Yep.
in order to stop Lamar Jackson.
Right.
So we saw this past week Devontae Smith almost score a touchdown. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside is back to get the play started. But you saw him almost score a touchdown on a screen play, a tunnel screen, which we haven't seen in a long time. But that's just a direct reflection of what's going on at the line of scrimmage and how many people you have to add to the box. So you're going to see this expand a bunch, right? I'm waiting for the boot game to come in there.
We
a little
did
bit
see more
too.
fly motion, I would
Yeah.
say.
You're going to
last
see
week.
more.
Yeah.
You're going to see more what I call, just because it encompasses everything, backfield action. You're going to see more backfield action because Jason hit it right on the head. You get predictability with the defense. You know what you're going to get. That's what every offense wants. You want to know, because everything's based on probability and tendency. Nothing is 100%. So you want to feel that based on your film study, based on how they're going to react to you, that you know what you're going to get.
So when you do have the backfield action, you know that they're going to have to send a defender.
Well, you want to grab eyes.
Right, exactly. So if you could get someone out of the box or give you more of a predictability, because this is what they're going to do when we move.
I mean, when I watch tape, I'm sure you see the same thing. I am very conscious of seeing how the defense reacts to any kind of backfield action, jet motion, orbit motion, whatever the motion may be.
Right.
I'm very conscious, as I'm sure you are, of seeing how the defense reacts. Some defenses don't move at all.
Right.
Some defenses you start seeing second-level players bump. You know that from film study, how a team will react to that. You're trying to grab eyes.
Right.
Yeah, the purpose and the intent of that is to grab information for later on.
Right.
Right. That's one of the main reasons. You're grabbing as many eyes, doing all those things, but you're trying to set up a play for later, and you're setting it up by saying, okay, if I go over to this 3-man side and I put a guy in motion, what defense are they going to give me? And I can set my play up.
It's so funny that we talk about this because for the first 3 or 4 weeks, we would make these points about
where's the motion?
why you might want to use motion, why you might want to run the ball more, why you might work the run off your quarterback run, and it was clearly not happening. But we were be able to. You would hear Nick Sirianni say, "Well, we don't want to do that stuff just to say we did it." But now they're doing it for intent, which is what we say.
And one thing that is very clear, and I watch tape of a lot of teams, as you know. I try to watch all the teams. I can't every single week. But motion is actually used much more in the run game than the pass game. People always think motion pass game. It's actually used much more in the run game. The 49ers use more motion than any team in the league, and it's more about the run game than the pass game.
Looking to create that bubble for you to be able to cut into?
It has to do with run support
Right.
and those kinds of things, but I mean, that's why you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the reason for this, like you said, what we were wondering, it's just that they were indecisive on the plan going forward. Now you understand what Jalen Hurts is, how to use him, the best chance for your team to win, and then they just burn the boats. Hey, this is the way that we have to win football games, and they died to all of, let's make him Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, let's spread it out and give him decision. You know, they can that, and now it's easier for them to go forward this way.
Though, if he's the quarterback next year, they can give him more volume. You know, but right now, the best way for them to win is run the ball.
Yeah.
And let your offensive line get off. Greg's the best person to talk about this, but I highly doubt any offensive line's playing better than they are right now. And it's not just run blocking, pass blocking. They're giving you enough time to throw the ball when
Colts
they throw
offensive line's playing
pretty good, but this one is this one has been
playing
incredible.
really well, really well.
I mean, and the holes though, Greg and Jason, when you watch tape, these aren't college holes, which are these are you're not supposed to get holes like this, and they are getting it, and that's a tribute to everybody.
Without question.
Yeah.
I want to get back to Jason Kelce real quick. You played with Jason Kelce.
Yeah.
And you've been retired for quite a few years now.
Yeah.
And he's out there.
I am. you don't have to hint at it.
Oh, I'm not as old as I am.
He's out there blocking two guys on one play. How much of just in general what they're able to do schematically is because of his athletic traits? Because not every center moves like Jason Kelce.
It's his athletic traits, but his ability to be a coach. Like Jason Kelce is not just a center or not just a football player. He's an extension of Jeff Stoutland. He's literally the coach on the offensive side of the ball. Everything runs through him. There's no protection that's signed off without his approval because he knows that he has to run it. And he hears the guys, hey, Jason, giving them feedback. And if he thinks it's okay, it's going to be run because of Jason Kelce. But yes, he's always been athletic. That's one of the reasons he was able to win out the starting job with Howard Mudd over Jamal Jackson years ago because of his athleticism. That's right up his alley of getting out on the edge, pulling. That's always been his motive. I've seen him 50 yards down the field. We all have. Running full speed. He's a very athletic guy. So when you can get him on the edges, that's where he excels. Now you start to get that nose tackle in front of him. That's a whole different subject.
Oh, yeah.
But
Everybody's got a kryptonite.
you have those big guys next to him. They can
I
get
remember,
that done.
and they don't run this in the system right now, but I remember when they used to run sprint draw.
With Jason Peter would do it.
With Peters
with
would
the
smack the
club,
guy, and then Kelce would get out in front. Oh, yeah. That's a great play.
That is.
I think Darren Sproles scored that touchdown against Jacksonville.
That was a sprint draw.
Yeah,
Sprint draw.
absolutely. Adam, you got to bring this guy back if he wants to come back, right? I mean, you have to bring Jason Kelce back.
We put this out last spring, but would have to redo his contract. He's got a
Kelce, you're talking about?
Yeah, in June there's a poison pill.
Poison pill.
It's $40 million. It forces both teams to renegotiate. But at this point, Jeff, knowing how the team organization feels about him, and you guys you watch his tape every week. His tape is
playing at a really high level,
right? And he's healthy. He always says it. Let's see how I feel. Remember last year he had the dislocated elbow, and somehow he played through it. I don't know how, but anyway,
He looks like he's having fun too.
He is. That's great. That is the point.
That's the point.
Jason, although I know you played receiver, but when you're around something that's this special with a bunch of guys, the record is what it is. This is a young team, relatively young team, but when you're playing this well, and you see the guys you're playing with on that offensive line playing at this elite level, would you walk away?
No, not for Jason. Jason is one of those guys that wants to win Super Bowls, but he also wants to have fun. And when you're at this age and you see the development of these young guys and your input and you're helping these guys. So I don't think that he's going to walk away at this point. I think that they'll get back to the table and renegotiate his contract, and he'll play a few more years. Every year he's always saying, I don't know. And these guys are having fun, and they're establishing themselves as one of the better offensive linemen in football, offensive lines in football. So he can't walk away from that.
And keep in mind, I mean, you got Mailata's a young guy. Dickerson's a young guy. Let's assume Driscoll stays the starting right guard. If they keep playing and he keeps playing at this level, he'll be the starting right guard. And these are all young guys who are just going to keep getting better and better.
Comes back next year.
And I'd say this, Jason Kelce likes playing with Jalen Hurts. I'll just tell you that. He likes playing with him because he views him and respects him as a leader. And if you can get Jason Kelce to respect you, it's an accomplishment as a player.
Jason, from talking to people close to him, is super big on accountability.
Yeah.
And the words that you hear from inside the building and agents who have players who play with Hurts, they love that he's accountable.
Yeah.
And it's not just what you see in a press conference. His leadership skill, you're around him. I'm not saying it's rare for a young player, but he immediately took responsibility for everything that's happened. And he's, hey, it's on me. I got to be better. And last year I don't think they were really getting that with Wentz every week. And that, to me, from what I heard, was an issue with some of the players.
The face says it all,
I wasn't there. Feel free to jump in any time.
Now, Kelce and Wentz are pretty close.
I'll look like this. No comment.
No, but I'm just saying overall with the players, they would complain to their agents, hey,
that's pretty,
our quarterback's got to
true.
play better, and it's got to be on him. And there was just too much finger pointing. Look, when you're 4-11-1, there's always going to be issues.
Right.
But what we now know is that
the players didn't believe that he was able to get the job done. That's just the bottom line. Whenever you see that's the truth, right?
Yeah. I'm sure they're fine with him in Indianapolis. I'm sure the Colts have no issues with Carson Wentz.
Yeah,
right
I'm
now.
pretty sure. Yeah,
they're good. But when it's great, you see
when it's good.
2017, nobody says anything.
Right.
When it's
they
not
had
good,
problems in 2017.
That
was a dysfunctional winning team.
how so?
It was a lot. It was a lot of friction. It was a lot of
Really?
friction. Yeah,
With the players?
Yeah, there was some friction. People think that it's always sweet. It's not always
That's
sweet.
true. That is true.
It's a
There's a lot
locker
we
room.
don't find out
It's a
about,
lot.
right?
Yeah,
That's true.
it's a locker
You'd be
room full of
surprised.
big egos.
Yeah.
It's never the easiest.
Especially when you're winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
All
Guys not only want to win, a lot of times they want to be the reason.
Bye-bye Wentz credit. But they don't say anything when everything's great.
Remember, that's a very interesting year, 2017, because there was only 2 guys who ever had 100 yards receiving the whole year.
Yeah.
And nobody had 1,000 yards rushing, and nobody had 1,000 yards receiving.
You
that
mean
year.
in 2017?
2017,
Yeah.
yeah. So to Jason's point,
It was kind of a weird year.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
don't forget, after that loss to Kansas City, week 2, would they win 11 or 12 in a row?
I think it was 9, but yeah. And then they lost to Seattle after that. But
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
Well, that was when, just
Chris
to
Jones
finish this
killed
off,
us that game.
when Jay was traded for, that was the issue with the organization. Adam Gase wanted him out at Miami. He had issues with the coaching staff. How's he going to handle himself? And what you were hearing was whatever issues he had in Miami, he was quiet because he saw the winning. Nobody wants to be the guy who speaks up when the quarterback's doing great, as you know.
There you go. All right, let's shift focus a little bit and talk about how the Eagles have had all the success on the run, but at some point, it's hard to believe it's going to be like this week after week. Somebody's going to come up with some idea to try to stop something, whether it's selling out or just doing something schematically. The Giants have not been a great run defense team this year, both in allowed yards and yards per carry. They've got some pretty good personnel, though, up front. They have some pretty good players. So, Greg, is there any reason, when you look at what the Giants do, is there any reason to think they can be the ones to kind of slow this train down?
You would think not. But again, every game is different. But there's nothing about looking at the Giants D. I mean, they've got some good players. Leonard Williams, is theoretically a good player. The Clemson kid, Dexter Lawrence, is a big dude who's got pretty light feet.
Yep.
They do not have bad players. I think they're hurting a bit at linebacker. Trey Crowder pretty much plays every snap now.
So the loss of Blake Martinez.
I think Martinez's loss is a big loss for them.
Right.
So we'll see. But I mean, I don't think you look at the Giants front group and say they're definitely going to shut this down. And the Eagles are not going to play any differently.
Right.
And they're giving up, Jeff, over 4.5 yards per carry to opposing running backs. So, yeah, they should have success. Look, anything could happen any week. And the Giants could change a little schematically.
Which they will.
And listen to Joe Judge. I was listening to Joe Judge's press conferences this week. He sees it. He knows. In fact, I didn't realize this. I guess he said he was with Alex Singleton. It might have been New England when Singleton years ago was trying out.
Oh, right.
For some teams. And they could change their line scheme just to stop it. But coaches will tell you, you can try anything you want, but if you want to play 8 or 9 in the box, you could still run against it. It's how you do it.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So we'll see today. I'm fascinated to see, though, what's good. Because one of these weeks, someone's going to find something, but they haven't found it yet.
Jay, what would you, if you were the Giants, let's say you're Patrick Graham, their defensive coordinator, are you playing a bear front? Are you trying to do something that's radically different to get a better result than anybody else has gotten?
Yeah, to me, I would set out for the run game as a defense. Like that would be my game plan the entire game, because you have the guys that can run. You got Adoree Jackson, he can run.
Yeah.
I like Darnay Holmes. He's a solid nickel player.
Yeah.
And you have Bradbury, who you paid a lot of money to, and you have you got Xavier McKinney, you got Julian Love, which can be able to match up on Goddard. So if it was me, I'm selling out for the run. Meaning 8 guys in the box the entire game and playing man coverage with blitzing if I can, in order to kind of limit Jalen Hurts as best I
Are you
can.
playing your safeties up?
Yes. Why not? Our receivers haven't proven that they can just clearly dominate the outside of the game besides Devontae Smith. And you got adequate players to be able to handle that. Dory Jackson can run.
Yeah.
Bradbury's a good player. He's always in position. He's getting beat a lot lately, but he's in position, and it kind of tells you what they feel about him because they play this field and boundary thing going on now.
I know.
So that's always a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Whenever I see that, it's kind of weird to me because they don't believe
I
in
actually wanted to ask you about Bradbury. Bradbury was tremendous last season.
I don't think he's been as good this year.
Yeah, what has happened?
But, well, that's a hard thing to, I mean,
You watch
maybe
Gabe,
Jason,
he's getting beat.
Yeah, he's getting beat. I mean, but I think because you have Bradbury, and I agree with Jason, I think what you have to do is you have to pretty much dare the Eagles to throw the football.
Yes.
You've got to just say to Bradbury, you know what, this week you're going to be on Devonta Smith. You're going to travel with him. You're going to play him, and you got to live with it because you have got to defend the run game. You've got to get numbers to defend the run because Hurts gives you that extra number. So you've got to defend the run.
How last week, real quick, on Lattimore when Smith? Did you see Lattimore match up on Smith last week?
He did.
How did he do?
Not on every snap.
How did Smith do?
Not on
when
every
you saw
snap.
him on him? Did you think he beat him?
There were a couple times.
Okay.
Yeah.
4 for 6, right?
Yeah,
So
but he didn't play him on every single snap,
Gotcha.
which surprised me.
The thing that Devontae has, and I think the Eagles are figuring this out, he had a deep crossing pattern on Lattimore. That's to his advantage, right? Because he can do a stair-step moves, but it's hard because he's fast. Like Devontae's fast, and it's hard no matter what the defense runs to cover a guy that fast all the way across the field. So they need to put more of that in the game plan.
Okay. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts a little bit because there's going to be a point where he's going to be asked to throw the ball more, as you guys are mentioning. He's going to have to be the guy to win the game for the team. It may not be today against the Giants, but it'll probably be at some point by the end of the year. I thought the Denver game, we talked about how precise he was and how good of a decision maker. There were some throws last week against the Saints that were surprising. I don't know if it was just they were off. I don't know if you guys remember the first throw he had to Dallas Goedert on a kind of a corner route, but it fell about 4 yards short, and he wasn't hit on the play. So maybe the ball just came out of his hand funny. But he obviously missed Miles Sanders down the right sideline. It was a little late there. The ball got broken up on the scramble play.
That's the one that the pocket was clean, and he started pirouetting in the pocket.
Yeah,
I was like, what in the world? What are we doing? The pocket was clean.
Yeah.
So he did that like 3 times.
Yeah, and Greg, I know you had noted that even on the 33-yard pass to it was Devontae Smith.
As a quarterback purist, those plays drive me nuts because obviously it worked and it's 33 yards.
Right.
And I'm sure you remember the play. I mean, it was third and 2, and I wrote it down. The play design was Smith on a slant underneath the natural rub by Watkins, and it was a man beater concept. Everybody plays man on 3rd and 2. It's a man down in distance for the defense. He dropped back. He didn't even look there. That was the play design. Yeah. And then
he makes a play.
And then he makes a play.
Right.
that didn't have to be that hard.
Exactly.
But he makes it, and everybody forgets about it.
Yeah, and I don't know. Again, only Jalen can answer this question. I can't. But I don't know why he didn't look. That was the play design.
You could see it screaming on the tape.
It was a natural rub, which everybody runs on 3rd and 2.
Wide open.
Some degree. There's different ways to do it. A lot of teams do it with a quick out route off a rub. This was a quick slant underneath the rub. That was the play call to get a first down on 3rd and 2.
Right.
He didn't even look there.
Right.
And then he throws the 33-yarder, and if you're watching on TV, you think that's the play call, and that's a great play. That's why I would love. No one's going to ask him this because they won and it was a big play. I'd love to know what his thought process was.
The coaches asked him that.
Well, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did.
Yeah, the coaches asked. But when you win and you make a play, it's kind of swept under the rug even for the coaches.
Right. And by the way, there's a lot of times I remember having a great conversation at the Combine a number of years ago with the wide receivers coach for the Seahawks. And I asked him, I said, what is the feeling with the coaching staff when Russell Wilson misses the design of the play as you've mapped it out and game planned and worked on it all week, but then runs for 20 yards for a first down? And he, without skipping a beat, said, we say, good play, Russ.
Don't you show it to him? Yeah. I mean, you want to show him, hey, listen, because the big issue with Russell Wilson is holding on the ball too long.
Right, but I'm saying, I'm just trying to make the point that this was the design of the play.
Right.
He didn't do what the play was, and he didn't even look at it, and then he gained 33 yards. So are they going over that with him, or are they saying, great play, Jalen? I don't know.
You tell me. Most of the time in their meeting, you don't know what happens. I'm hoping that they say, this is where the play is designed.
Right.
But most of the time,
This is
it's
what
like
we called the
most of the
play.
time, it's like, hey Russ, this guy's right here, man. But you made a play, good job.
Right.
I see what you're saying.
And that's how
Right.
it goes. But it's frustrating as a receiver because you turn around out of the break, you're like, what are we doing? Why? And then you get looked at like you're TO if you say something.
Right. Wait a minute. Would you go? Okay. So there's a play when you were on the Eagles, and the design is perfect, executed well, but Donovan goes to the third guy. You're the first read, and would you say Donovan, or you go play was made?
About that stuff.
Certain guys can handle it, certain guys can't. Certain guys will have a vendetta against you for the rest of the year because you called them out or you said something or things like that. So
When you're sitting down and hey man.
No, you got to be
have a
careful about
relationship.
Yeah.
You have a relationship, but every receiver, and here it is. Most receivers think they're open. Right, so you got to be a guy that is known to be open and you know what you're talking about. If I go to Don and say, hey, Don, I'm open, he's going to listen to me. But if it was somebody else, then you're like, man, shut up.
But
it all depends on if you respect that guy.
And it depends on the quarterback. I mean, I remember Michael Irvin telling me once that he says, I would get on anybody on the team, but I never said anything to Troy.
Really? Yeah. Certain guys.
He knew.
Don't bite the hand that feeds you.
I got it.
Certain guys.
Greg, real quick, I want to go back to your original college scouting report on Jalen Hurts.
Which I sent to you because I thought, I get one right once in a while.
No, like you've kind of have it.
That's an interesting take you just had.
What?
On the tape. No, go ahead.
My transition, I think, is the key thing there.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we don't have to read all the strengths and weaknesses because a lot of what you say
kind of
here
says it all.
I think the transition is really interesting. How you say, can he develop into someone who can run an offense by himself? That's not overly schemed like a Dak Prescott who developed that way.
Who's incrementally gotten better and better every year.
Right. Or does he become the Lamar Jackson of the next Lamar Jackson in that you have to run an overly schemed offense to accommodate
specific to him.
His traits, which is clearly B right now.
Which is what I said when I watched him coming out of Oklahoma. Because that's when I did the evaluation.
Right.
Yeah.
Why didn't they read this going into the year? Then they wouldn't have had those first 5 weeks.
I know. So I don't think we know the answer to that yet. I think right now they're taking the Lamar Jackson approach because it's going to help them win games. And by the way, it's going to be very interesting. Obviously, we're a number of games from this point. And schedules change and all that, but if you look at their schedule now, it looks like they've got a lot of winnable games.
Yep.
And who knows, maybe they make the playoffs playing this way. So do they feel as an organization that they've seen enough from Jalen Hurts as a passer to say he's our guy, or there's going to be some serious conversation about that.
There is. And that's a difficult decision because you're asking for projection still. You're asking for what did he learn this year compared to what does he have the capacity to learn more going forward, which is at the end of the day a projection.
And that's why it's so important to play these games out. See if the Eagles play well in a situation where they're the favorite. See if they compete and make to the playoffs, because all of these things are going to help him grow.
Right.
And that's the goal, right? To get a young player like this, to get him developed and put him in game situations, and hopefully we can see over the next couple of weeks him progressing. And if he progresses, you never know. It may not be one of those things you have to go after in the draft, and which can help your team out
they'll
overall.
have to make that decision. And look, ideally, he continues to incrementally improve throwing the football. And there's many things that go into that. I'm not just talking about going out in your shorts and a T-shirt and throwing a football. I'm talking about all the things that are involved in playing quarterback where you have to drop back and throw. At some point in the NFL, you do need a drop back passing game.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yes.
Okay, now you're trying to minimize, even the good teams try to minimize that. I mean, obviously with the Tom Brady's of the world, he can do anything. But even the good teams try to minimize a ton of drop back passing.
Sure.
But at some point you do need that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the throw, like the most impressive thing that he did everyone's talking about the run where he scrambled for a touchdown. The most impressive thing that he did to me in the entire game was his throw in the first quarter to Dallas Goedert on the sideline. That was the most impressive thing because it was in rhythm.
Right.
It wasn't much, separation. It was a perfectly thrown ball to the sideline, and that was the most impressive thing that he did to me did for me that game.
Hold those thoughts on Dallas Goedert and a secondary option in this offense. We're going to talk about that in a second. I want to take a quick break so we can hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars and the voice of the Eagles, Mr. Merrill Reese.
Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, big thanks to our friends at Sky Motor Cars. If you stop in to their headquarters in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. You'll get a great deal. All right, I
actually went there and I said, Adam sent me, they said, I think the door's over there.
What?
Yeah.
Really? Don't tell them I sent you either then.
But you were an all-city shortstop.
I was.
Did you get a discount?
I was.
And
that was a
who
long.
played?
That was a long
man,
time ago.
really?
You did have a sweet J, though, I'll
Awesome.
say.
Oh,
New York
nice.
City, yeah.
Are you sure they just didn't recognize you
Yeah.
and that was more
Maybe.
of a less
Yeah,
Adam
that
and
was
me
all
thing?
fiction.
All right.
I'll have to
Yeah,
tell
it
you,
was
though,
somebody that knew the statistician on the
he
show.
had a
He's
sweet
like,
jump shot. His
Dave.
picture.
I did have.
Is that from
I did.
Amherst, that picture? Or is
That's
that
from
high school?
Amherst. That's college. Yeah.
It's hard to believe that was you.
I played Division III basketball.
What century was that?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was. Yeah. I'm trying to remember what century that was.
Leather helmets and,
yeah.
you know.
Leave him alone.
You can take
You can tell by the shorts.
Yeah,
shorts.
Oh, they're
Yeah,
short shorts.
Yeah,
Oh man, you had the booty shorts. So.
And I had the Chuck Taylor sneakers.
Oh my God!
These are
You know I have Chuck.
Hoosiers. He was out there.
That's right.
Were
Little
you
Jimmy
Jimmy?
Chitwood.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, listen, Jay, I'm glad you're here because we've been asked this a lot throughout the week, and the question sort of makes me want to like pull my hair out, what little I have, because I don't think people really appreciate the art of being a slot wide receiver and all that goes in.
Oh, God, no.
And I say that because there's been a lot of talk of why don't they just put Kenny Gainwell in the slot and see if that
God.
doesn't spark the offense this year. And you know, I'm gonna let you explain. And listen, I understand why people ask the question. They're just looking for somebody to step up on this offense, not named Devontae or Dallas Goedert, and clearly a wide receiver type weapon. But why couldn't you put Kenneth Gainwell in the slot as a full-time slot receiver?
Oh, you just can't. Getting open on high-level cornerbacks is tough. It's not like getting open versus a linebacker. These guys get paid to cover people.
Right.
The other thing, too, you got to know blitz protection, and he should as a running back, but you got to know when you're hot. You have to know when to settle in zones and what coverage it is. All of those things happen at the slot position.
Which take years, by the way, of
Yeah,
playing, right?
it takes time, right? Because there's first window throws, there's second window
Yeah.
throws, there's thick and runs, there's come back down, your stem. There's so many variations of what you have to do on each possession, each route. So it takes a guy that's pretty high level thinker in order to execute it at a really high level.
And also, did you ever block in the run game when you
well,
were a slot receiver?
Well, you have so. If you're going to be 11 personnel team, and you have to be willing and able to be able to block a buck linebacker, right? A strong or a weak linebacker, wherever you are in that formation, that's your responsibility.
So you have to know that assignment?
If they decide not to match you personnel. So
Right.
what that means is if we're in 3 receivers and the defense says, you know what, I'm not going to put an extra cornerback on the field. I'm going to leave a linebacker out here, and you got to run play on. That's your responsibility.
Yep.
He outweighs you by 50 pounds, and you have to be able to do that, and most guys can't. So
Don't want
there's
to.
and they don't want to,
Right.
So you got to be willing
That's
to
the
do
biggest
that.
thing,
You know,
yeah.
you gotta do it. There's times where I'm sitting out there and I'm blocking, a defensive end for half the game because I'm the chip man, or he's one backside and I just have to get in his way, or if it's a toss to my side, I have to be able to hold up against a linebacker. You got to be able to do that.
In college, did you line up outside, inside? Where did you play at Michigan?
I played outside majority of the time. I was the X receiver outside.
Okay.
Braylon was the
Braylon Edwards?
No. Yeah, I was the X most of the time. My senior year, I went to the flanker, but I had times where I was in the slot as well.
So slot though, exclusively in the slot at the NFL level. What were the challenges for you when you first got there?
Coverages, and knowing when I was hot, right? And then my timing was different. Usually the slot is going to be third, fourth progression, right? So I had more time to dance. You have more time to dance as a slot to be able to get open and knowing when the quarterback is going to come to you. And the quarterback has to be comfortable with the slot position. So you got to have a great slot.
Yeah,
You have to be. You
the
can
whole
have a
point
great
is,
one.
it's a position. A
Yeah.
lot of work
Right,
goes
right.
into it.
Yeah.
You don't just take a rookie kid
No,
running
just
back
let him game on the
who's
slot.
never
Yeah.
put him in the slot and say, here,
you
go
know
play
who's
the
playing
slot.
really well at slot right now is the Renfro kid. From
Hunter
Hunter
Renfro.
Oh my
Renfro.
goodness,
He's
putting on
a
the
slot
clinic.
machine.
Yeah, he's putting on the clinic, but he did that in college and he has some
course.
history
That
at it.
was
But he's
his
putting on the clinic.
position.
Well,
at
and there's
slot.
also different kinds of slots, as Jason knows. I mean,
Right.
Marcus Golston made a career playing inside, and he's 6'3", 220.
Sure.
And then we think of slot receivers more like the Renfros, the Beasleys,
Mm-hmm.
guys like that.
Yep.
Those are totally different kinds of players.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah.
with different skill sets and traits.
Yeah, and
You know.
back in the day, like the originals, like the Antonio Freemans,
Right,
like
right.
like a lot of those guys were slot players, bigger body guys. Now you have the smaller ones. It's a bunch of different ways you can get it done.
I do want to point out, though, as we talk about the Eagles and the need for somebody other than Devontae Smith to step up, the Giants have the 26th ranked pass defense, and they've been really hurt this year by slot receivers, tight ends, and running backs, all in the passing game. I'm talking about Darren Waller, CeeDee Lamb, J.D. McKissick, Cordarrelle Patterson, and Dalton Schultz are 5 of the top 8 receiving efforts against the Giants this year. So this is sort of not the Eagles' strength right now, although Dallas Goedert is.
Yeah.
But that's the Giants' weakness, where to hit them.
Well, if we're only throwing the ball 17, 20 times a game,
How many opportunities
how many
are there?
opportunities is the third guy going to have?
Right.
We
That's
talked
the
about
other
that a
thing.
lot.
Right, and that's it. So
Right.
if he's throwing the ball 17 times and you give, Dallas Goedert 8 targets and you give, Devontae, it's only another target for another guy. And
Exactly.
we saw Jalen Reagor with 1 target, Quez with none.
Right.
We talking about,
Sure.
So
Plus
it's
a
not
few
many.
screens go to the running backs. Yeah, there's not
he's
much
dropping
left
back
over.
22 times a game, and 5 of those are he runs. Scrambles. So how many throws are there?
There's not a lot.
There's not a lot of
Right.
throws.
But is
So-
there a way, Jason, you can make yourself a target? I've heard this from coaches before. Sometimes, whether it's route running, just winning at the snap, because I feel like with Reagor, there's a lot of talent there. We saw it last year when he was healthy. He wasn't healthy a lot. This year he's a non-factor.
Yeah.
How does the guy go from? And we could all argue whether he should have been a first-round pick or not. But it's not like this guy isn't talented. Why can't this guy be a factor?
Well, his deficiency is route running.
Okay.
Right? And like I said, remember, I've always said that they drafted him based on the word that Greg hates, potential.
right.
They drafted him based on potential. And does he have talent? Yes, he has an enormous amount of talent. But when it comes to just getting open naturally and having route feel and being able to make a guy move out of their spot and break down faster than other people, he gets hurried and rushed. And that's not a good sign for a younger quarterback. A younger quarterback needs to see you win early so they can have confidence to be able to throw
That
the
would
ball.
explain their lack of time.
And the other
Got
thing
it.
too is, and you know this as well, when they did have him run vertical routes, when he was split outside the numbers, he had a big tendency to run to the sideline.
Right.
Yeah.
And that just cuts down. The quarterback's going to look there and say, I have nowhere to throw the ball.
Sure.
There's
And,
not.
and he's not going to throw him the ball.
Yeah.
Right. All right. We thank you very much for tuning in again to Inside the Birds pregame live with Jeff Mosher, Adam Kaplan, Greg Cosell, and Jason Avant. Now let's hear from our friends at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook.
This is my city. This is a city that knows how to play. A city that's in it for the win. So I go to the place that gets that. Where they know how Philly likes to play. And where I know my seat is always ready. This is my place.
All right, a big thank you to our friends here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. We'll talk about them more a little later. Now we want to get into our weekly episode with former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quentin Michael called Q's Views. In this episode, we talk about Q's hatred for the Giants as much as, if not more, than even the Cowboys.
I remember him telling us.
All right, we're here with former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quentin Michael for Q's Views. And Q, it's your favorite time of the year, Eagles versus Giants. You are from the Andy Reid era, and guys like you, I think, hate the Giants as much, maybe if not more, than the Cowboys. I know that's weird for fans, but isn't that the case for the Andy Reid era Eagles?
Absolutely. I despise the Giants. You know, they had some really good teams during that tenure, and we had some really, really tough, hard fought games. And even though like over the long course of, I guess, the history, the Cowboys have had more success. It's just always been for players, the Giants. You just can't stand them. They used to be. They probably still are dirty players. They do a lot of dirty stuff that people don't get to see on TV. So you just have a lot of disdain for that entire team and that era and that program and organization and all that. So I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be happy to see Michael Strahan getting his award. He's being honored by the Giants at halftime. I'm sure that makes you very happy.
You know, he's one of the guys. I think he's probably one of the ones that I have a lot. Obviously, I have a lot of respect for him. I don't think I never really saw him do anything. Him and John Runyon, of course, had those huge battles for so many years. So he was probably one of the only few Giant players that I actually was okay with. But most of the other ones, especially the offensive players, I couldn't stand.
Fair enough. Let's talk about as a defense how the Eagles prepare for the Giants this week, knowing that the Giants have fired offensive coordinator Jason Garrett. Freddie Kitchens probably going to be the person calling the plays, or at least having the biggest fingerprint on the playbook. But when you played and you were playing a team late in the year that had just either fired a play caller, how did you guys approach the week, kind of trying to expect the unexpected? What did you do?
Well, the biggest thing is you always try to stick to your game plan, and in 1 week there's not so much that an offensive coordinator can do to kind of overhaul the offense and make it look completely different. So, I suspect that Gannon will have the same mindset of let's stop the run, let's force them into second and long, third and long situations, and then come after them and be smart about when we come after them. And then you also have to study Freddie Kitchens. He's the new offensive coordinator. You kind of got to study like his play calling style. So I would suspect that they're going back and looking at the Browns when he was calling plays for the Browns and other teams, and kind of getting a kind of a feel of like, hey, does he like on third down? Does he like more screens? Does he like to take shots? Does he want to just play it safe in the back end? Like if they're backed up, does he play it safe and call more run plays? Does he do a lot of boots? So you kind of put together your game plan based on what they've done and what they've shown up until this point, but also be ready for his style of play calling.
Yeah, Freddie Kitchens is known as a spread guy. He played quarterback at Alabama. When he was with Cleveland, he liked to throw the ball around. You look at the Giants' offense, Q, and they have playmakers. They have Kenny Galladay. Kadarius Toney, we'll see if he's able to play or not. But either way, Evan Ingram, a very fast tight end, Saquon Barkley. Darius Slayton has hurt the Eagles in the past. Do you kind of get concerned that a new play caller, a fresh perspective, kind of wakes up the Giants' offense at the wrong time for the Eagles?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know what happened to Jason Garrett. That offense, that Giants offense, looked absolutely atrocious. I mean, there was no imagination, and they have playmakers. They have guys that can make plays. You got Saquon, you got like all the players that you just mentioned. And, quarterback wise, Daniel Jones, although he's really hasn't shown much yet, he can still deliver the ball. He can run the ball really he's really fast. People don't know how fast he is. He's really athletic. So I'm actually really surprised that it's taken this long for the Giants to make that move. And I do suspect that Kitchens is definitely going to get a lot more out of those offensive playmakers. And but I think at the end of the day, they are what they are. If the Eagles come ready to play and they stop the run and force Daniel Jones to drop back and throw the ball, 20, 30 plus times a game, he's going to definitely make some mistakes. So, I suspect they'll be a little bit better, a little bit more efficient, but I think the Eagles will be all right.
Yeah, it also adds to the unpredictability of the game, though. And we talk about NFC East games. We talk about division games and how unpredictable they really are. I mean, it was the Texans beating the Titans, right? That nobody saw coming. Why is it that division games just tend to be haywire like that?
Well, it's kind of weird. Like sometimes sometimes there's teams that they get up and they get ready to play division rivals more than other teams. There's a little bit of that, but also you have to understand a lot of times when a GM is looking at a team, he kind of designs his team to attack his division opponent's weaknesses. And so I think that's why you see a lot of that happening in the divisions. Is you have a team that's designed to beat, let's say, the Giants. You have a team that's designed to compete against the Cowboys. You have a team that's designed to go against the Washington football team and be able to handle them. So I think that's why you see so much similarities and discrepancies in the divisional games.
All right, Q, let's flip sides here and talk about the Eagles' offense. No Jordan Howard, who's been a big part of their resurgent running game over a 4-week span. So I'll ask you two things. One, do you just keep rolling the way you're rolling and, with the personnel that you have if you're the Eagles' offense? And two, are you expecting at some point an opponent, and maybe the Giants today, to do something a little bit different, trying a different front, trying a different scheme to try to slow down what the Eagles have been able to do?
Oh, yeah. To answer your second question, absolutely. I think we've been seeing teams kind of adjust their game plans. At first, it was blitz on first and second down to Hurts's right side, and then the offense started to figure that out, and they countered that. And then the next week, it was more like sit back in coverage and kind of force them to try to make mistakes. And then the Eagles were successful against that. So I suspect this week that the Giants are going to sell out on the run. They're going to play soft defense and try to, obviously stop the run on first and second down, but also try to make it so where, you not play so much man, play more zone, and try to force Jalen Hurts to try to read coverage and try to find the open man. And then, I think game plan wise, I think you have to continue as the Eagles organization, even though you don't have Jordan Howard, you still have to continue to run the ball with the multiple sets and try to hope that, the one cut run style of Jordan, even though it's not there, try to get that out of your multiple running backs. So, I think Miles definitely can be a one cut runner. The difference is he's not going to necessarily just run you over. He'll get his foot in the ground and he'll get vertical and possibly pop one, but he's not going to break the same amount of tackles that Jordan is. He's not going to be as physical a runner as Jordan is, but you can still try to get that same type of style and from all the different types of schemes and run schemes that the Eagles have. And so I think they continue with the same mindset. They continue with the same, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And so we'll see. Hopefully they stay with the run game and it's been successful. So we'll see.
Yeah. Do you feel like this might be the week where they have to be a little bit more balanced than they've been in the past? At some point, someone's going to be able to stop that run a little bit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suspect that this will probably be the start of, these divisional games where teams are going to say, we're going to force Jalen Hurts to beat us. We're going to sell out on the run and see what he can do. And so, the problem when you do that is now you got one-on-ones on the outside possibly, and those receivers, Davante, Quez Watkins, and I'm blanking right now.
You got Jalen Reagor and Dallas Goedert.
Reagor and Dallas. It's time for the receiving core and the tight ends to really step up and be the kind of savior for this offense, because teams are definitely going to start selling out on the run. Everything's going based off of the run game. So I suspect that it's going to start this week, and hopefully, Sirianni's kind of planning ahead for that.
Definitely. All right, given your history of picks this year, I kind of think I know where you're leaning, but I'm going to let you go ahead and say it. Who's winning this game? What's the score?
Absolutely. I think, the Eagles are going to win this one. I think we're 2-14 in the last 6-7 years against the Giants. I mean, we haven't lost to them in a while, and I don't think this Giants team is ready to compete. So I think the Eagles are going to win. I think it's going to be I wouldn't say a blowout, but I think it's going to be like a 28-14 type of game. Eagles win 28-14 by 2 touchdowns.
People will take it. Eagles fans will definitely take that, and they'll call it a blowout too, just because.
Yes,
all right,
sir.
So there it is from Quentin Michael, former Eagles Pro Bowl safety. He says Eagles win 28-14. You've been watching Q's Views. Thanks, Q.
All right, thank you.
All right, big thanks to our friend, former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quentin Michael, for that great segment of Q's Views. It is hour 2 of Inside the Birds pregame live. Still plenty of time to come down to the casino, hang with us, watch the show. When the show's over again, Adam and I are going to do an ITB watch party here at the awesome sports book at Rivers Casino. So come on down and join us. Have some fun. We'll give away some prizes. I might be able to convince Jason Avant to autograph something. So hopefully you'll do it. Did I just put you on the spot?
All right, I got you.
All right, good.
It's a napkin around here somewhere.
I meant,
It'll say "Go Wolverines."
I meant my arm. All right, look, the Giants might be 3-7, but we know, and Jason, you can speak to this, division games are no joke. They're always tough. They're always unpredictable. And adding to that unpredictability this week is that the Giants have a new offensive play caller. They fired Jason Garrett into his second year. Now, that just made me think, as I was saying this, because he was the head coach of the Cowboys, there was no time off. He went straight to offensive coordinator. So the Eagles have faced Jason Garrett for about a decade now in some form or fashion, but they will not today. It's not hard to see why the Giants were looking for a different play caller. You know, they added guys in free agency trying to improve that offense, including Kenny Golladay, Kyle Rudolph. They welcomed back Saquon Barkley from the ACL. They drafted Kadarius Toney, who's probably not going to play today. But they've been anemic on offense. We're talking about 18.9 points per game, 322 yards per game. They're third down. They are 24th in third down, and they are 32nd, dead last in red zone offense. So I just want to take a moment to remind everybody that Adam Kaplan picked the Giants to win the division going into the year.
Did you have to do that?
Yes, I absolutely did. I did.
I'm going to take the L on that.
Are you having buyer's remorse?
Yeah, I thought because they improved so much, particularly on defense last season, second half, with Patrick Graham being the defensive coordinator. You even mentioned that.
Yeah.
Their defense has been significantly disappointing. You can't blame everything on injuries. Like, you could blame a lot on the offense. But, yeah, I thought they'd be a lot better. I thought they would progress, and they didn't. They've regressed, and that's why Jason Garrett got fired. With all the talent you mentioned, right? And Barkley, we know he's missed time.
But guys have missed a ton of time.
They have, but Darius Slayton's still there. Kenny Golladay has made it clear he wants more targets. And guess what? Joe Judge actually backed that before and after he fired Jason Garrett.
Is that what you're expecting? The biggest change from the Freddie Kitchens DNA here? Will that be Kenny Golladay?
He'll get the ball more. They're going to be more aggressive. What you probably will see is more throwing on first down. Is that very vanilla, despite all the talent you mentioned, Jeff. And don't forget about Evan Ingram, who's on a final year of his rookie deal, who's super athletic. Tony, as you said, won't play today. John Ross is their shot play guy, including Darius Slayton, who's done well against the Eagles before. So they have the talent. It's just that they're not getting these guys to the football. And you mentioned some of the things they could do. And you can't keep blaming their offensive line for every issue.
Right.
It's really not that. In fact, the offensive line isn't great, but it's not as bad as last year. So you expect Freddie Kitchens, who's known in coaching circles to being very aggressive. He got the Browns head coaching job. Why? Because he did such a brilliant job in 2018 after Hugh Jackson, who was the head coach then, was calling the plays, got fired. And he was great with Baker Mayfield. So I would expect him to be more aggressive coming out throwing the football.
That was Mayfield's rookie year, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or was
2018, yes.
Yeah, and he actually had a decent year that year, throwing the football and everything. What do you expect from Freddie today?
I think you'll see more RPOs. I think you'll see more design movement. I think that they'll get away from, obviously there'll be drop back passes. There are in every game, but I think you'll see them getting Jones out of the pocket more. I think you'll see that. You'll see more RPOs. I think you'll see ways in which they feel that they can define things more cleanly for Jones, which first down passing does as well. So that to me is what they'll do in an overview. It's as far as specific plays I can.
One thing, Greg, Daniel, when you look at Jones, right?
Yeah.
We've seen him be up and down. There are times this season he's been terrific. The Saints game, times the Bucs game, throwing a pick to a defensive lineman. Whatever you want to bring up, there have been things where you scratch your head. Why has he not been as good as I think we all thought he would be?
My sense, and again, you always have to know how things are taught, and I'm not there, but my sense is, as I've watched Jones throughout his career, is that he's just a beat late as a decision maker. That it just his elimination and isolation ability, that's the term I always use, eliminate what's not there and isolate what is there within the timing of the drop and the route concepts, is that he just struggles a little bit with that too often, and he gets stuck in the pocket. When you see a quarterback get stuck in the pocket, most of us, if you're watching a game on TV, can't see the routes. Okay, you're seeing the quarterback. He gets stuck in the pocket, so the assumption is always, oh, well, the defense the
receiver
coverage
didn't
was
get
great.
open.
There's no one open. When you watch tape, you see that is very rarely true, by the way, very rarely. There are snaps when it is, but very rarely is that true. And he gets stuck in the pocket a lot.
We used that term for Bridgewater as well a couple of weeks ago, I
Yeah,
believe.
he does too.
Yeah.
But I think that Jones just doesn't quite eliminate and get to where he needs to go as quickly as he should. And that's why I think what Adam said is true. They'll try to define that for him with more first down throws where they feel they'll get predictable fronts and coverages, which you tend to get more so on first down. And that's why I think you'll see RPOs and design movement.
Yeah, some guys will have like a presupposition about the play, like they understand this play and they say, oh, the ball's gonna go here,
Right?
And they'll get stuck there because they want it to happen before the play determines what happens, you know. And if he gets stuck on that side too long and doesn't eliminate it, and that's what Greg is saying. And it happened with Daniel Jones. It happened with a lot of quarterbacks.
Right.
Teddy Bridgewater. They already make up their mind where they want to go before the play happens. And when it doesn't happen, they get stuck because they can't adjust. Rather than looking at the coverage and determining on your drop back, oh, the coverage is dictating this, I go here. Rather than what I made up before the play.
Where do you think it went wrong with Jason Garrett and this offense?
To me, I don't think that they attempt to run the ball enough. That's one of the things that I say. I know Saquon's hadn't been healthy, but you still have, Devontae Booker, who's a good player. Yeah. I think that they don't emphasize running the ball. And when you have Kyle Rudolph and you bring in Kenny Galladay and you have Tony. So just like the Eagles, you have these young players that are fast, and everyone's talking about how fast the Eagles are, and you see all this. So you want to make it an explosive offense that dictates passing the ball a bunch. But that's not the strength for Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones hasn't proven that he can just take a team on his back either. Right. He's a very athletic kid that needs support and help. And Saquon Barkley, Booker, needs to be featured a lot more. And we're seeing this around the league. Everyone wants to be Patrick Mahomes. Everyone wants to be Aaron Rodgers. Everyone wants to be Tom Brady. You're not. Run the ball and help these young guys until they get to their level. And I think that's the problem with most of these teams.
And by the way, the run game is making a return in the NFL.
It sure
is. I think people are realizing that at some point you have to run. Right. Now, again, that's relative. You can debate what that means. Right. And it also is a separate conversation from, do you need a great back? Everybody always says, well, don't draft a back. That's a separate conversation. Right. But at some point, you've got to line up and run the ball. Right. And I agree with Jason 100%. Jones ultimately, because he was the 6th pick in the draft, the assumption always is that if a guy's drafted 6th, then he's that lead dog. He's Justin Herbert.
Controversial 6.
Right. Without question.
Okay. Very
Without
much
question.
so, yes.
Without question. But I mean, the feeling is, it's Justin Herbert, it's Josh Allen, super talent that can pretty much do anything. Well, at his core, Jones is probably an executor and a ball distributor in a multi-dimensional offense that needs a run game and that needs the system to work, that needs the system to define the reads and the throws for him. He's not going to do all that by himself.
And it just doesn't happen overnight. Any of these guys that we're talking about, whether it's Tom Brady, whether it's Russell Wilson, whoever it is, it just doesn't happen overnight where they're able to pick apart a defense. Like we saw Tom Brady this past week against the Giants just go down the field like it was water most of the game. Like that takes time and development. You support them with a run game, Kevin Falk. You support them with an offensive line, do all those things, and then they graduate to being able to handle more complex things as they get older.
But Jason, when you're doing that and you have to evaluate a quarterback, you need to see a certain level of progression in a quarterback's performance by year 3. And the problem is you keep seeing him being up and down. The variances are pretty big. It's either every once in a while you go, wow, that's what we were thinking he would be. And then he has a game like last week where you go, what's going on here with him?
Because he can be pinpoint accurate at times.
Yeah,
he can be.
And keep one thing in mind. With most quarterbacks coming out of college, pretty much all, every coach can list his traits, okay? And every coach would list the same traits. But what it comes down to is, what value do you ascribe to specific traits? Every coach would ascribe different values to the traits, and offensive coaches see those traits in the context of their system of offense. Sure. That's the way it works. Sure. So when you look at it, that's why you hear, oh, such and such a coach loves this quarterback, because he sees him in his offense. Right. Another coach might say, well, those traits, that's not my guy because I run a different offense, and what are his strengths don't fit into what I really want to do. Sure. So everybody evaluates, offensive guys in particular, in the context of the offense in which they run. Absolutely. and they see a guy like Jones, I'm sure we all thought this coming out, that he was kind of a ball distributor. He's an executor, good athlete. He's a good athlete.
He's got a good arm, too.
Yeah, and he's got a good arm. But he's just been a little slow in what he sees and how he turns it loose.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of a distributor,
Oh, there's Ron.
we're getting a great distributor of our own.
My man,
Our man Ron.
What's up, bro?
Ron, what's happening?
What's up, Ron? You got the B Doc jersey on again.
Oh, he's
I forgot, you're washing it, right?
Keep it clean.
All right. This is Ron bringing us drinks as he does
Thanks,
every
Ron.
week from Jack's Bar and Grill.
Got a
He's the
ginger
man.
ale.
Ron had a
There it is.
Now we
prediction.
can't let you leave without a prediction.
Thanks,
That's a
Ron.
middle-aged drink, by the way, ginger ale, just so you know.
I'm past that.
I'm giving him a compliment
Yeah, I
calling him
know.
middle-aged.
I know.
What do you got, Ron? Who's winning today?
Well, I think, we can't take the North Jersey Giants too lightly. Division game and all.
That's right.
That's right.
But I think we walk out with, I'm going to say 30-17. Seems to be like a good
My score was right around there.
30-17.
Yeah, you and I see it the same way, Ron.
All right.
There you go.
All right, man. See you.
Great job.
Thanks, Ron.
Good luck, man.
Again, come down to Jack's Bar and Grill, say hello to Ron. He'll serve you a great drink, and then you can place a wager and have a great time watching football here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. And just to give an idea that we asked before some people to give their score predictions for the game, the Eagles fans watching at home. Peter Kurz says 27-9 Birds. Ron Kay's got 40-20 Eagles.
Wow.
Dang.
How about that, right?
Scored 41 last week?
40 last week.
So they did
Okay.
score. It was a repeat
Yeah, we had a
40-point
pick
performance.
six.
Pick
That
six,
helps, yeah. 33 in offense. Right.
Our man Paul Mancini says 27-16 Eagles. And Alex White says 38-20. A lot of high scores out there. Everybody's thinking the Eagles are just going to roll on the New York Giants this week.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right. Oh, Greg Miller, 33-17 Birds also. Getting back to what to expect from the Freddie Kitchens offense. And so it's interesting. Passing on first down, right? If we see more spread or even lining it up and running more, it feels like if you're that Eagles interior defense that has struggled at some points this year, both against the run and the short pass, and now we've got no Davion Taylor, Alex Singleton in, is that where you think the Giants are going to take their aim today? I mean, you would have to think, right?
Yeah, the Eagles has a bunch that we're winning ball games, but we still have a bunch of weaknesses that we can attack. We still have, you can attack Steven Nelson. You can attack the double team the two inside players and make some hay in the run game. You can attack our linebackers in coverage. Like there's a bunch of things that this team could potentially give up. But what we think is that our offense being able to control the time of possession, run the ball. The Eagles have been opportunists lately, with defensive turnovers. If that occurs and that happens, we kind of beat you up front offensively.
Now, on the other side of Nelson, Greg, is Darius Slay. What does his tape look like to you this season?
He's played really well.
How so?
I mean, I just think that, to me, and Jason could probably speak about this more than I can, they've increased their percentage of man coverage in the last number of weeks. But even put that aside, I mean, he's always been a good man corner. I mean, that's the main reason.
Darius. Who are you talking about?
Slay.
Slay. Yeah. Okay. Slay. Okay. Yeah.
He's always been a good man corner. I think that's why he was signed initially, because they figured he'd line up and play man. Obviously, we've seen this year that the defense, for the most part, even though they've increased the percentage in recent weeks, has played, not as much man as maybe some of us thought. But they also have two other guys that they have to be careful about. But I just think he's so good at reading routes and understanding splits. I mean, to me, and I've talked with guys who played corner. I remember having a great talk years ago with Al Harris. And, I learned so much. Yeah, I learned so much from, these guys, who teach me about the specifics of a position and talking about understanding splits and the routes that come off specific splits.
Yes.
And, that it's funny, you talk about corners, you can watch a guy in college and say, oh boy, look at his transition skills. All that's great, but then you get to the NFL where the game's different.
Doesn't happen.
And, just because a guy, can flip his hips doesn't automatically mean he's going to be a great corner. I think Slay, and Jason could speak to this better than I could, but I thought his interception last week for the touchdown, because that was not man, that was cover 3 if memory serves me correctly. But the way he read the route and the quarterback, because they teach a lot of times in cover 3 what they call reading the triangle. You're reading the receiver through to the quarterback. And he did such a good job doing that. You know, that to me is what he's so good at, in addition to lining up and playing man.
Was he baiting the quarterback a little bit on that play?
See, I don't view that as baiting. I view that as playing it properly.
Just playing off to give the
he's
cushion
playing
and
it
the
properly.
appearance, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing that kind of aids that is that when our defensive line is causing disruption up front, and they did earlier in that game,
and they did on that
it
play.
gives the corner more confidence to take a chance,
right,
and not respect the vertical ball,
right,
and all those things. Remember, a corner's thinking about a bunch of things. This guy's split, who it is, what's his strength, what's our coverage, who's helping me, who's inside of me, those types of things. He's thinking about a bunch. The thing that you love about that play, but there was zero wasted movement.
Oh, yes.
There was zero wasted movement. And a cornerback will win 100% of the time if he can be that clean. When he transitioned, it was one, bam, I'm going.
Right.
Which made me think that he had confidence in the D-line getting there.
Well, two things happened on that play. Number one, Cox did apply pressure, and Simeon kind of drifted and couldn't get anything on the ball.
Right.
But number two, and this is where I think you learn as you become a pro. That was a spot throw, okay? That's an out route. Those are spot throws. The quarterback's not waiting for the receiver to make his break.
No.
Right.
It's a spot throw.
Right.
I mean, I remember Jaworski telling me there were certain throws you could make blindfolded because they're spot throws.
Right.
You know by the drop and the throw where it's got to be. And cornerbacks, they learn, they know what the spot throws are, and they know where they're going to be. So when you're reading the quarterback and the route together, you know when the ball's coming out of the quarterback's
So he put himself
hand.
in the perfect spot,
Correct.
knowing where
and
the
the
ball
no
was going
wasted
to
motion
be.
is critical.
The no waste of motion and Fletcher drift caused him to throw the ball a little bit inside. It was a little inside, you know, but great play by him.
All right, we got inactives.
Yep, no surprises. Reed Sinnett, third-string quarterback, inactive, so the Eagles were just two quarterbacks. Jordan Howard, who was out already. Kerry Vincent, Tay Gowan, who was on the injury report. Mac McCain and Marlon Tui-Pelotu. So no surprises today. And then, again, they brought up Maiden, the safety, but he'll be on for special teams. And that would mean that who's the guy who was injured? Oh, Sean Bradley is active. He is active.
He is active.
Sean Bradley, that's good for
So
special
I have a
teams.
question. Maybe you know the answer
Yeah.
to this. What is their take? It has no bearing on today's game. Sorry, on Kerry Vincent, the LSU corner, because LSU obviously puts out corners.
He was just a developmental guy that wanted to take a shot and just see
Coach
how
him
he
up.
progresses and see if he comes back next year. Kind
Because
of guy.
he's another big-time recruit at LSU. You know, as a corner, they get big-time recruits at corner.
If I remember
I
correctly,
didn't
it
watch
was,
his college tape, so that's why I was asking.
if I remember right, high traits, questionable off the field, or maybe just the needing to be coached up, and if you can overcome that. We talked about the
think
dart
you're correct.
concept that they're doing with cornerback right now. Is you try to bring in as many guys who, for whatever reason, fell through the cracks, and if one or two works, then you got
Josiah
that's a good
Scott, Tay Gowan,
right.
Maiden as the
McCain.
safety, Kerry Vincent you just mentioned.
Right.
Mac McCain is the fifth guy. You just want to see if you want these guys back next year, and if so, what kind of upside did they have?
Jason, you mentioned before that you were curious about Jonathan Gannon's kind of aggressiveness today and whether or not he will be based on the linebacker switch that has to be made. Clearly, he's been more aggressive the last 2 weeks, and I think what Adam and I have discussed on Inside the Birds is that a function of the fact that they've faced two teams with real issues, injury issues on the offensive line? Or is it that Jonathan Gannon just wants to be a little bit more aggressive? Is it the quarterback? So here's a case where you're facing a Giants team that has a questionable offensive line and a quarterback who's only completing 57% of his passes versus the blitz. But I almost think you're skeptical about how much pressure he's really going to apply today.
A little bit, because you're facing statues the last 2 weeks, right? Teddy Bridgewater isn't going anywhere.
Right.
Trevor Siemian isn't going anywhere. Dane Jones, however, will run it on you if you miss a blitz. So it kind of limits you a little bit as a defensive coordinator sometimes, because we know how athletic he is. He's a 4.4, run past a lot of guys, and I didn't realize how slow the Eagles were last year until he tripped over his own feet. I was like, oh my God.
Right.
Like, we were bad. It was nobody that can run out there. Turf Monster got him fourth. But so it kind of limits you. So I think you should still be aggressive, because it's the message that you want to send your team. And I think our team is playing a lot better because of the pressure and them being able to get in people's face and that mentality. You can't lose that mentality. And I think, so you have to do it. Do I think it's the best situation this week? Yeah, there's times to do zone blitzing, but man blitzing this week, I don't necessarily know if it's the best situation with the quarterback.
There were a few pressures last week that I thought were new for Jonathan Gannon. I think there was a double corner blitz. I mean, he came from some angles that I haven't seen, with some personnel that I hadn't seen earlier, Greg. Did you see a diversity to his pressure last week compared to maybe some weeks before?
I said there was a few ill-timed blitz where guys
I
were
wanted to
5
ask you about
yards.
that. You like some of their blitzes, right?
I hate that. I hate when a guy's 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage when the ball is snapped. Because it's very, very hard for a guy to get there. And then there was one time when Alex Singleton blitzes and then goes all the way to the right around the edge. It's like, dude, you're never going to get there. So I don't understand some of the concepts sometimes, but I like the fact when you get in. I'm an A-gap blitzing guy. I know because as a player, the hardest blitz that you can defend is guys in the A-gaps. It presents so many challenges. It scares the quarterback. The center jumps offside. I mean, false starts. So I like direct access blitz and right up the middle.
Greg, what would Jaws always say? No quarterback wants pressure up the middle, right?
Oh yeah, well that's true with.
Yeah, you just don't. You worry about it. Because especially if you do double A gap.
Well, you can see it. That's the thing.
Right.
You can see it.
You better get rid of it real quick.
Yeah.
Greg, what's your impression of the Giants' offensive line? It gets a lot of criticism, but they have put some resources into it. Is it as bad as it's?
I don't think it's as bad. I think some of that's been on Jones.
Yeah.
As well. So I don't think it's as bad. In fact, I thought early in the year it was pretty good, and they'd been playing well. Do the Eagles have an advantage? Theoretically, yes, but I don't think it's a big advantage in this game.
Right.
And I think that Freddie Kitchens, by the way, and we'll see how the game plays out. Obviously, score will dictate a lot. But let's say the game ends up being close. I don't think the Giants' offensive line will be a negative in this game, and I think Kitchens will call the game to minimize that.
Interesting.
If the game is can stay close.
Andrew Thomas showed development at the end of last year,
and he was good early this season.
Then he got hurt.
Then he got hurt.
Yeah.
Right.
He clearly had improved early this season.
Right. How about the kid that he used to be the first-round pick out of Ohio State for
Billy Price.
For Billy
Yeah, I
Price
haven't
for the
studied
Bengals.
him, so I don't know. Yeah.
All right.
But
But in general, I
obviously,
think people think Giants bad offensive line because that's what they hear all the
They
time.
hear it all the time.
But when you guys watch the tape, you see it's
don't-
not.
yeah,
He
it's
has
not
enough time to throw the ball.
Yeah, he does.
He has
Yeah.
enough
Right.
time to throw the
I
ball.
would
He's
agree
not
with
always completing passes.
Yeah.
And the thing is that this team, as much as their record is bad and how well we've been playing, running the football, scoring 40 points last week, a lot of people are, picking, us to like kind of blow them out or win like handedly. I think you can't ever underestimate a roster this good. To me, I think they have a lot of good players.
I agree with you.
And if those players step up and they can distribute the ball the way that they would like him to do with Kitchens, this would be a tough game.
Yeah.
And because I think they had a lot of good players on defense, and I know they have a bunch of players on offense that can make plays.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And to your point, real quick to the point, I remember the Eagles' offensive line got a lot of criticism from the loss to San Francisco, from the loss to Oakland, right? When the Vegas Raiders, the pass rushers. Obviously, when things changed and the scenario and the entire offense changed, that offensive line started to look better. You started to cater to its strengths, and that's how I probably feel about the Giants' offensive line not being as bad as maybe the circumstances around it seem to suggest.
And I know he's been hurt a lot, and it's probably not a large enough sample size for me to say what I'm about to say as a true fair statement. But I feel like they've never developed a sustaining run game with Barkley. He's a big play back who can take it to the house on any play. He obviously, has a lot of talent and traits.
He killed. Was it last year, Jeff? He had over 200 yards.
It was 2 years ago.
But it just seems, and again, like I said, it's probably a function of the fact that he's never really been able to get into a rhythm in his NFL career, but they've never really established any kind of consistent, sustaining run game.
No.
And I think that needs to be their starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll see if that
They paid
changes
him like
today.
it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's weird.
Number 2 pick in the draft.
We were talking about Slade before and just the idea of what he's brought to this defense. And I thought last week Avonte Maddox played a fairly decent game as well, coming off the new contract. Now, he was asked to play a little bit more man, I believe, last week, and that was one of the...
Well, they've been playing more man.
They had been playing more man, and that was kind of...
And he blitzed, too. We talked about that last week, and they blitzed a couple of
Remember,
times.
That was our discussion,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
like,
yeah.
if you're
He
going to
did.
pay this guy, are you going to use
Let
him
him do
more
that
than
slot
just a
blitz.
slot
Well, maybe
corner?
Jonathan Gannon listens to the show.
Perhaps he does. How important was it for him? Because we talked about the fungibility of a zone slot corner. If you're just going to play zone, then you
don't
could
need to
probably
pay him.
exactly.
Right.
So they
You get
did
the guy
pay
in the
him.
draft, right,
So they did
right.
pay him. So,
Well, they're
so
expecting
it goes
to do
hand in
more,
hand.
right. Remember, this guy, let's not forget, now you could argue he doesn't look that fast. He ran, I think, of the 4 threes.
You have to
Yes.
understand,
So he's got speed.
whatever this means, at Pitt he was a boundary corner. He
Right.
blitzed a lot. Boundary
did
corners
he?
in college, because the short side of the field is so much shorter than it is in the NFL because of the hash marks.
Right.
He was a boundary corner at the University of Pittsburgh, and he blitzed because I did his evaluation coming out. So he has experience with blitzing. This is not new to him.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not new to him. I thought that he played a lot better. Very active in the game, pass deflections, man coverage. One letdown for me was a touchdown he gave up to Callaway because it was a very, very simple cover 3 carry.
Talking about the seam ball?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can, if you're going to be carrying the seam, you can't be flat-footed like you're going to the flat. He was in between two defenses.
So he probably got kind of lost there because he has to play between 2 and 1, and he kind of got lost.
Yeah. But you want to get a little bit more ground because he doesn't have the flat net responsibility. The Eagles have been carrying the seams a little bit lately, so it was just a bonehead play to me.
Right. But that was more of a recognition than a physical attribute.
No, yeah,
then,
he can cover the guy.
Right.
Yeah, he can cover the guy. It was just a mistake.
Yeah. That touchdown, the first touchdown that the Saints got was
Troutman?
unbelievable. I mean,
he pushed off Singleton? Or was it Edwards?
it was on Edwards,
yeah.
who was there, who couldn't break it up. And then I think Josh Sweat came within an inch of annihilating Trevor Siemian on that play.
made a play.
Well, what was interesting about that play, the Eagles had been playing dime on 3rd down.
Right.
On that play, they played nickel because Maddox had gotten hurt a few plays earlier.
Yep.
So instead of playing dime, which they had been playing on 3rd down, they went nickel. And if you notice, Edwards was on Troutman.
Yes.
So
And that's not his
That's a
strength.
great play.
Yeah.
That's a great
It was
play.
a great play. I mean,
that
he
was
did kind of
that's a
push him
perfect example of an individual play as opposed to a scheme play.
Right.
Dallas Goedert got called for offensive pass interference. No, it was that Devontae Smith. It was Devontae Smith on his touchdown.
Yeah. Real quick, the completion percentage against the Eagles over the last 4 games, down to 68%, which still sounds high, but if you consider the first 7 games, it was at 74%. And the last 2 games in particular, Denver and New Orleans, it has been 58%. So
look at that.
incrementally, as you
Look at
mentioned, more packages. They are playing more dime.
man.
Which is funny. More man, more dime.
And dime,
If
oh
you
my
remember
goodness.
Jonathan Gannon
Yeah.
after week 4, we don't have a dime
They're playing
package.
dime on 3rd down a lot, and then other selected situations.
Right. That's just really interesting stuff. We'll see.
Yeah.
So
Let me ask you
general-
this. Obviously Gannon was an easy rip for everybody. The first 5 or 6 weeks. So do you think that? And I don't know the answer to this. Do you think this is all sort of planned as he got to know his players better and figured out
what I was
what
gonna
they
get
could
to.
do? Because
Sure.
ultimately it's easy. I'm not comparing Nick Sirianni to Joe Gibbs, believe me. But Joe Gibbs was 0-5 in his first 5 games, and people thought he shouldn't have been hired, should have been fired.
He
after
said that,
5
yeah. He
games
said
in
he thought he
Washington
was in
back
trouble.
when he was, hired. It takes. You can speak to this better than I can. It takes coaches time to understand who their players are, what they can do, how they can work together. This takes time.
I don't think there's anybody who's kind of pointed that out more than us on this
Right,
show
right.
and our platforms, that yes, you can criticize, but you have to remember that these guys have to learn what it is they have. It's easy to go out there and say blitz all the time. It's easy to go out there and say run the ball all the time.
Right,
but
right.
Well,
they had a plan.
I've been on his butt, right? Just
Oh, yeah.
because
Oh, yeah.
I have. I've been on his
Yeah.
butt. The reason is because at times I thought that this could have been done a lot earlier. And yes, does he has to learn and grow? Because these are first-year coaches, and that's always been the grace, the saving grace. These are first-time guys that are doing it, so they're growing too. But you just don't expect the NFL coach to be able to. You expect them to have the infinite knowledge almost.
And I think in some ways they don't. I mean, and I'm not defending these guys. I'm
Yeah.
just making a statement. You got a first-year head coach, a first-year defensive coordinator, a second-year offensive coordinator, a first-year quarterback coach.
Shortened
26-year-old
OTAs.
linebacker coach.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
By the
no,
way,
I mean, these
adjusted
are all,
OTAs. They had half the amount of OTAs
Right,
that you
right.
normally have. Bunch of guys were hurt in training camp that are playing prominent roles now. I mean, and I want you to speak to this because I've heard coaches talk about this and players too. There are some times where guys do things in a game that they don't always do in practice. Meaning
Right.
you may see it, they're not getting it practice, but all of a sudden in the game they turn it on. And I do wonder at some point, Jay, if they weren't seeing what they wanted to see from a success standpoint in practice, but once they started putting in the game and getting it rolling, it was a different result, and they felt more comfortable with it.
Well, and history. So when you get guys like Eric Wilson, who was in your system before, you got Anthony Harris that was in your system before, you give these guys the benefit of the doubt because these are the guys that you banged on the table for, and you got them, and they didn't play well, so now you're trying to figure out what do I have to do. And so you're overlooking a guy that's in your shed already, and TJ Edwards that's known to be a good football player. Maybe his measurables aren't the best, but he's a good football player, and everyone knows that.
Right.
Limitations, yes, but I can depend on him. And you put him in the game, you get Davion Taylor up to snuff to the point that he's able to recognize where he needs to be in zone coverages and get into the flat. And you start to, transform this defense with a few more blitzes. So I like the fact that they did adapt and they didn't live with what they started with. They have made adjustments. They have.
This is an amazing stat. The Eagles are the only team that has play callers doing it for the first time on both sides of the football this season. Yep.
I did not realize that.
I went through the list last night. Someone tipped me off to it. I want to make sure it was correct. Anthony Lynn technically called plays before Buffalo. Now, he got his play calling taken away by Dan Campbell. But that's playing to all your point. Like, you're going with guys who have not done this before. There's a certain amount of growing pains that you have
They go
with
through
this.
growing pains, too.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Look, are we excusing it? No. It's tough when you're watching football. We were saying, and I think it was fair, that Gannon was very passive. Because part of it's because he didn't know what he had. Now he's starting to see it. He's trusting more, playing more man coverage. Jim Schwartz, there were certain things he wouldn't do because last year
Clearly didn't. Right.
he was like, I'm not letting them do that because he's playing backups. So there were certain things he would not do last season where we would go every week scream like, what are they doing here?
True.
You coach to what you have.
And by the way, things may not work, and then it's easy to rip them, but these decisions are not made on a whim.
Right.
That's the thing. I mean, they don't wake up one day and say, hey, I think I'll do this today.
Right.
These things are thought through. Not everything works.
Yeah.
And I think people lose sight of that. Not everything works, but they're not made on a whim. They think this stuff through.
I also think that to the public, young players are allowed to be, you always hear, give them time to develop.
Sure.
They make mistakes, they'll learn, but the coaches don't seem to get that leniency the same way.
No.
All right, check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto, and they're at PHLSportsNation.com. They're on Twitter with PHLSportsNation. We're getting close to the end here. I did want to go back to Daniel Jones. We were talking about him a little bit, but the threat of him to run, I think you brought it up, Jason, now, the turf monster got him last year.
And his own read stuff. I mean,
his own read stuff.
They do.
Yeah, he's been, if you go look at the leading rushers against the Eagles since the start of 2016-19, Daniel Jones, number 2. Ezekiel Elliott, number 1. Daniel Jones, number 2. Saquon Barkley, 3rd. So he clearly has had some good rushing against the Eagles. Do the Eagles, with them, the defense that they're playing now, are they more or less vulnerable to it, or the same? Because last year you saw a lot of quarterback runs against the Eagles. Last 2 years, really. This year you have not seen that as much, design quarterback runs. I also don't know off the top of my head how many guys that they faced this year that you would consider real threats to run with the ball.
Not
at the quarterback spot.
We've had very, very vanilla defense, so there's been no need to run at quarterback.
Yeah, everybody's completing 80% of their passes.
They can dump it down, right? So there's no purpose. Now when you start to blitz, now they're forced to run and different things of that nature. Like I said, you have to be careful when you play coverages like 22-man, you play coverages that's man and you don't blitz. You got to be careful in those times with a running quarterback.
Right.
Well, and the other issue, too, is the Giants are down some tight ends, right?
You're down 2, yes.
So Rudolph's out.
And Caden Smith.
Caden Smith. So who's
Ingram?
Who's there besides Ingram?
Evan Ingram.
It's Evan Ingram.
Who's there to block is the big question.
Chris Myrick from Cheltenham High School.
Well, the reason I mention it is because when the Eagles face base defense, their tendency this year has been to play the 5-2 front.
Right.
Now, maybe the Giants will be playing a lot less with 2 tight ends because they don't have tight ends.
Right.
So we might not
They got
see.
more receivers.
Yeah, you might
you
not
could see
see
more
the
11.
5-2 front. You might see the Giants play more 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers, in which case they probably wouldn't line up in the 5-2 front.
Sure. Adam, I remember you said on the pod that people you speak to have said Daniel Jones is better than the numbers suggest. He's not great, but he's better than what you might. Just like the offensive line.
Yeah, there's talent there. It's just it's the wild variance of the highs against the Saints, where that was when they upset the Saints. It was an incredible game.
Right.
Back and forth, and then you see games, not just the Bucs game. And Greg was talking about it. It's getting stuck in the pocket. Where am I going with the football? And he was taught, but
have you been told that as well?
Yes, but a little different the way you said. But we come to agreement in the middle here.
Yeah.
He should be better than he is. This is year 3, and Dave Gettleman is the general manager. If Gettleman doesn't come back, you have to wonder about the new general manager. Is he going to want Daniel Jones? Remember now, his 5th-year option is due in May. It's not a lock that they're going to pick it up. You hate it when you give up the 6th pick in the draft, you make the pick, and this should be your guy, and it's even a question. But guess what? It's a question.
It is a question.
He hasn't been good enough.
He was Dave's guy, too.
Yep.
But don't forget, who was in that draft? It was Haskins, who obviously
it didn't work out.
Was that Josh Allen draft too?
No.
Allen was 18.
The next one, yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Who was the first pick in that draft?
In 2019?
Must have been a quarterback.
It's eluding me right now.
Yeah, me too.
Kyler Murray?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Kyler Murray.
Right.
Because this is Murray's 3rd year.
Yeah.
So Jones was wasn't he the second quarterback chosen?
Yeah, it was Murray at 1. Daniel Jones at 6 was the second.
And then Haskins at 15.
Yes.
Correct. Haskins was,
So there was basically Kyler Murray and then
So, I mean, you could make the argument that Gettleman made the absolute right pick, right? I mean, if you want to take a quarterback.
Or you might be able to look at some of the other talent on that.
Or you can look at who's picked number 5 or number 7.
Devin White at 5, who's terrific, right?
Yeah. Who was picked
number
at 7 and 8?
7 was the other Josh Allen, the DN.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jaguars been a nice player. Ed Oliver at 8.
Good player.
TJ Hawkinson at 8. TJ Hawkinson at 8, Ed Oliver at 9. Devin Bush, Jonah Williams, Rashawn Gary, Christian Wilkins. Chris Lindstrom.
It's a pretty good draft for anybody except for quarterbacks. And Kyler Murray.
Big time.
Who's that?
Devin Bush.
Yeah.
And then you have the Raiders last year who cut both first-round picks.
Yeah. So, I mean, you look at that now, I mean, and I'm not saying that's not the point, but we know quarterbacks always get shot up. Just in terms of evaluation, particularly when you feel as if you don't have one.
Sure.
You need one. And
when you need one,
it's tough.
It's tough.
I know it when the Jets took Mark Sanchez.
That's the classic case.
Right.
You and I have both had that conversation with Mike Tannenbaum.
We've talked to Mike about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They had one quarterback on their roster.
Right.
And,
they needed one.
They knew Sanchez wasn't the 5th pick in the draft.
Guess what?
But they didn't have a quarterback.
Right.
They got to 2 AFC championship games with him.
Correct.
You can say they won in spite of him, but hey,
they had a great roster.
I know.
Run the ball, play defense.
His first
the
year,
quarterback.
Sanchez's first year, they led the NFL in rushing and in total defense.
And that's what the head coach wanted.
Yeah.
Well, Daniel Jones is the 28th rated passer right now in the NFL, but if you look at his career stats against the Eagles, kind of interesting. He's 1-2, a 66% completion percentage, an 87.5 passer rating, and 732 yards in 3 games. So he's got 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Kind of a mixed bag against the Eagles, but obviously the threat of his run has hurt them in the past.
That game that was played at night last year where Wentz actually came back and hit Hightower.
The Boston Scott.
That was
Scott
the game, if I'm not mistaken, where Evan Ingram dropped that pass.
He did,
and the Giants would have won the game if he caught that ball.
Because if they had gotten the first down there,
on the left
there were
side,
no.
And that was a great throw.
Right.
I mean, that was just
he's
a
capable
drop.
of making
That was just a drop.
Well, Evan drops some.
Yeah, he does.
Greg, one question. When you talk about he gets money in the pocket, is it?
You mean he gets stuck in the pocket?
Stuck in the pocket. Is it man? Is it zone? Is it just blitzing? Like anything particular you've noticed?
I haven't made that gone into that kind of
detail.
detail.
Because I'm curious what they will do, knowing this, that he does get stuck in the pocket. What they will do to make sure he gets stuck.
What you can do, and the Eagles have started to do more of it, is what you show pre-snap is not what you show post-snap.
We've talked about
because all it takes in the NFL is half a beat for a quarterback not to see it the way he wants to see it.
Right.
Now, again, the great ones that doesn't
bother him.
Yeah, it doesn't bother him at all. I remember having this conversation with Dean Pease, who told me that I don't really do as much as guys with the great quarterbacks because they just see it immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
But the a younger quarterback, Jones is still a relatively inexperienced player. So yeah, I think you'll see more of that.
Taught by David Cutcliffe, right? At Duke.
At Duke, yes.
Yeah. All right, fellas, it's time to wrap it up. Get into our predictions. Talk about our players of the game.
We were 5-0 last week.
That's right. We're going to help some people
We're
win
0-5.
some money. We
We're
are.
5 against
5-0.
Denver. 5-0 last week.
No,
That's right. All right, we're going to help some people win some money, but so are our friends at BetQL. If you want to get an advantage over your sportsbook, you just got to download BetQL. It's the only app you'll need to make the best bet on whatever you're wagering on. The Best Bet computer model scans over 350,000 unique bets a year that gives you that best bet recommendation across all major sports, and it gives you the reason why you should make the bet. Their model covers everything from spreads to over-unders and player prop bets, and if you don't want to use the model, you prefer to do the research yourself, BetQL's got all the necessary tools for your research needs, from sharp data to line movement, team summaries, lineup and injury breaking news, even a leaderboards to track your success. So head to the App Store or Google Play Store now to download BetQL. You can also go to the website try.betql.co/ITB. Enter the discount code ITB at payment checkout for 25% off their subscription offerings. And of course, you can go to their Sportsbook offers page if you live in one of the eligible states to claim free offers upon signing up at one of the many sportsbooks listed. So don't miss out on the chance to beat your sportsbook this football season using BetQL. All right, let's get to our players of the game. Who are going to be the players of the game? Jason, Avant, I'll start with you. Who's going to be the player of the game?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jalen Hurts this game just because how easy it was for Tom Brady. But I know he's not Tom Brady, but I think he can run the ball. He's going to get easy completions because of the defense of the Giants. So I think Jalen Hurts have a big game running and passing.
Running and pass. All right, he's averaging about, I think, 12 to 14 completions in this four-game winning streak. Same, or do you think a little more?
I think he'll have a little bit more this game. I think he'll go over 200 yards for the first time in a couple of weeks.
All right. That'll be a big development for him. 200 yards passing for Jalen Hurts. It's in the books now.
They don't go over 200 much.
No, they don't. All right, Adam. I'm sorry, Greg.
I went with Jalen Hurts as well.
You did?
Because I think the Eagles' offense has found a nice groove now. I don't think the Giants are going to stop it. I can't give you, what his numbers are going to be, but I think that he's going to be very effective as a runner, and I think there'll be enough passing yardage to be a factor in the game. Whatever that number is, that'll be a function of the game, but it will be meaningful within the context of the game.
All right, sounds good. That's 2 votes for Jalen Hurts. Adam, who do you have as the player of the game?
So when you look at the Giants, we didn't talk much about their interior, but Will Hernandez is going to have the target on him. He has not played at the level he should have been. If you look at that draft in 18, most people thought he'd be a
second-round pick.
I know, come out of Florida. Most people thought he'd be a great player. He's not even an average player. When Hargrave lines up over him, he's going to eat. He's going to do well today. Hargrave is my player of the game.
Wow.
My player of the game should not be a surprise to anybody who's watched this rivalry last few years, and it's Boston Scott.
Oh, there we go.
The man is a giant killer, and he should see another increase in playing percentage today because of Jordan Howard out.
Yep.
And by the way, he can probably, of all the backs, be their kind of downhill running back, because he is kind of more of a downhill one-cut guy. He's shifty, but he hits the hole pretty quickly, and he has certainly punished the Giants.
Yeah, he is.
That was a nice over-the-shoulder catch last year.
Oh, that was a nice. It was great. That was an amazing catch
sideline
for a
throw,
running back. The one in the right end
Right
zone
corner,
down there.
right corner.
Sort of a wheel. I think it was a wheel.
South end zone.
It was a wheel.
Yeah. One of Carson Wentz's few signature moments last year.
Oh, that was a great throw.
Yeah. Bring him back. Yep, no doubt.
All right, so this game, for the second straight week, and I think for the first time this year that's been 2 straight weeks, the Eagles are favored. Last we checked at the BetRivers app, their line was Eagles are favored by 3.5 with an over-under of 45.5, which I would say is a medium-type scoring game for nowadays NFL. Remember, Sundays are made for football at Rivers Casino Philadelphia. Every Sunday from now until the end of the season, you can enjoy $7 food specials right here in Jack's Bar and Grill. You can get half-price gourmet burgers at Hugo's Chop House, drink specials, and more. And not only that, but when the birds score, you score when you're actively planning with their Rush Rewards card in their Bird's Nest pit in front of the sportsbook. Remember, you can be a winner at Rivers Casino Philadelphia, where Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We got more scores in from YouTube. Joseph Cantu says Eagles up 35-13. Zay the God says Eagles win 47-13. Matt Chisholm gives the Birds a 24-17 victory. Philly Grown says 27-17 Birds. Notice a trend here yet?
Yeah.
Nobody has picked the Giants to win. Very interesting. And our man Sage says Eagles win 35, Giants 21. So a lot of pro-Eagle sentiment not surprisingly,
Yeah.
on the Inside the Birds YouTube message board. Nobody feels like the Giants can win this thing, I guess.
The Freddie Kitchens factor to me is if the Giants hang in this game, it's going to be a factor. I do believe that'll happen. That'll make the game probably closer than you think.
All right, since you have that to say, why don't you start it off? Who's going to win?
I've got it. Giants 20, Eagles 27.
Giants 20.
So
He likes
27.
doing
He
that.
does
You
that
notice that?
backwards.
Dramatic effect.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, we got to get some.
All right,
dramatics.
Eagles 27,
27-20,
Giants
yep.
20. All right, Jason Avant, who's winning this game?
I have the Birds winning. I think I picked Eagles 27, Giants 23. I think it'll be a closer game than most people anticipate.
Yeah,
I think they
that's-
have really good players. I think the Giants have really good players. They haven't put it together, but I think they have good players.
Now, it's funny, you say closer than most anticipate, which,
Yeah.
based on our comments, is correct.
Yeah.
The line is 3.5, so you actually are going a little bit over.
Over on, yeah.
So, on that. Greg, who's going to win today?
Well, I think it'll probably be Eagles 72. No.
Greg Cassell from the message board says. Greg Cassell.
I think I picked the Eagles 31-17.
You did pick the Eagles 31-17. So you don't even think that this Freddie Kitchens thing is going to matter that much in the long run? Or you just came up with a number and said, that's what I think?
Pretty much.
The latter?
Yeah. You got me pegged right there, Jeff. You got me pegged.
Just look at him. He looks like a guy like that. I'm not sure what that means, but he does.
All right, well, it's going to be a clean sweep here. I'm picking the Eagles to win 24-23. It's a division game. It's always
You and I have the
tough.
same
closer.
points
Always
in the game.
tough. Yes, we
47,
do.
Okay.
We do. And I got to tell you, I'm very reluctant about this pick. I
You've
just
been worried all week.
tend to think that the law of averages catches up. And
Eagles have won 20 of their last 25.
You know what's
know.
going to be fascinating?
Yeah.
And I hope it doesn't happen. But if the Eagles lose this game, all this talk of the last number of weeks, and we're talking about that as well to some extent, is going to go right down the what. Right.
everybody's going to
with
get
you.
fired.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they know how it works.
That's how it happens. You lose this game. Yeah.
All right, remember, before you place your wager, come on down here to BetRivers or use the BetRivers app to make that call. And by the way, our friends at BetQL, if you're going with their model, you definitely want to play today, perhaps a player prop on, it was Devontae Smith. They see him having 7 catches for 125 yards and a receiving touchdown. So that's a big play there. I would stay away from Kenny Golladay if you believe in the BetQL, because they only see him having 3 catches for 55 yards. So they don't believe in the Freddie Kitchens principle just quite yet.
Darius
All
Slay's
right.
know him. He knows him pretty well, too.
Yes,
So,
he do.
yeah.
He does. All right, thanks to everyone. Thanks to River Casino and Sportsbook. Thanks to Sky Motor Cars, BetQL, the teams at Rebel Hill and Public Square, whose read I totally forgot. I apologize. Our friends at Public Square, Rebel Hill, they can bring your podcast to life. They're
Commercials,
amazing.
pods,
Zach and
anything.
James,
Trust me.
everything. Give
We've
them-
seen it firsthand.
That's
Phenomenal.
right. Reach out to
Phenomenal.
Rebel Hill and Public Square. We really appreciate it. Make sure you check out InsideTheBirds.com for all the coverage after the game and listen to the Inside the Birds podcast, which will be out Monday morning at 6 a.m. Cue hails to the Victor Valiant right there, right?
There
Hails
we go,
to
baby.
the Victor.
Victor Valiant.
All right, have a
Yeah.
great day, everybody. Enjoy the game.
There you go.